Welcome to the channel. This is Reliable Rudy. Getting a couple things set up over here on the off screen, then we'll get to the intro. Before we go into any analysis, you guys know I am not a licensed financial advisor. Everything in this live stream is me simply sharing my opinion, nothing more, nothing less. I'm just a guy doing what he loves to do. I'm gonna make mistakes, but we're gonna try and learn from it and make some money in the process. But the goal is getting better every day. I trade the market every single day. I invest in the market every single day. There is a difference between investing and trading. That may sound weird to you, but there is a huge difference in investing and trading. And I try to mix a little bit of both in, but obviously the trading can be a little bit flashier. But like I said, guys, just sharing my opinion here. So, into the pre-market. TIO, name number 1 on the list, and we haven't changed a darn thing. Had the stop in at 116, just underneath of this wick. You know, honestly, when we set it, we just started this position. We started at 25s, we took 23s, and then we took 21s, all in this candle, and we sat here and waited, and waited, and waited, and waited. And we said, hey, the body candle at 18 looks like it should be good support, but from where we entered, we felt like we didn't want to hold it any further underneath the 16s. So we put the stop in, and by the grace of the Lord, we held, and honestly, this was, if I was a little bit more patient, just analyzing how I traded it yesterday, maybe I was a little bit flustered. We missed the CG. We still have the same alert in for. Nope, we canceled it. But you can see where we were trying to hammer CGC, and then we get candles like this that come in after maybe I was a little bit flustered yesterday. And that's why we might have tried TIO just a little bit early. But TIO came out with the earnings report. We're getting a gap up. We respected 69s. 69s is this top wick right there, and then we also respected this 75 top right there. Those are the two fills we have in the pre-market, and it looks like we are going to be gapping up right around this area. If we switch this to an hourly chart, you can see the setup just a little bit better. This is the start of the gap fill. This is like this territory that we're in is the start of the gap fill. So if this wants to run for the day, and try to hold these 75s or 70s as support. If I was just going to mark all of these, I'll take these wick tops right there. That's a mark at 56. So if we pull back in, I wouldn't be surprised to see 50s try to hold and this to catch a bid over the next few days. But 255 is going to be an area that we're looking to run this to. But TIO, in off of cost average, got rid of all the 126s yesterday. We had fun. We went to work, and we put a bunch of orders in through these 30s and into the 40s. The 42s never gave me the fill, even though it shows that it closed right around that 42. But normally when you get something to rip like this and close near the highs, a lot of times you do get the gap ups on these names. They reported earnings. These are not their earnings. They actually absolutely crushed the earnings. That I just skimmed through them. I seen 8,000% revenue increase with EPS of $1.25, which is absolutely insane for a dollar stock. So I don't know if maybe I read it wrong when I looked at my phone. I seen it was up in the pre-market. I was like, oh boy. So we had to brew some coffee, let the dogs out, and get a small. Oh, Charles is here. Good morning, Charles. How we doing today? Drink coffee, waiting for my squeeze. I did see GNS was catching a little bit of a bid. We actually bought a little bit of GNS yesterday. Reloaded a little bit of GNS, and I'll show you the exact candle that we did it. We put an alert off these 145s right here, and as soon as it took it out, on this candle. We waited for it. It triggered us on this candle. We said, okay, let's see if it's going to go. And then we opened down, kind of traded down to these 140s again, and then it came in. And I think the fill that we got was a 147. And the reason why I also liked it, let's just clear the chart because it looks like a mess. Also, the reason why I like this because when we try to confirm this higher low, one, it's a good candle close, but you can see the volume does slightly start to pick up. But then when this candle really started going, we just said, hey, we think that this is an area where we can reload. We've thought about those 150s. And if I go back to how my chart was set up, this is pretty much how my chart was set up right here. We said, hey, I'm going to put a pretty good wick into the trend line. We thought early in the day that we were going to be able to get these low 130s, the neckline test. And then we went to work and we said, hey, if it opens, if it gets around here tomorrow, we're expecting it to be down. Uh, that's all right. But now we're getting the gap up, and I'd say uh, kind of breaking through this little descending wedge pattern that we have. If we just marked uh, some breakout levels, I'd say over top of this 152 is a nice break. So I'd want to see an open price above that, even if it kind of comes down below that a little bit. I'd want to see it start wicking and try to hold that 150 on the first candle. So that's all we're really looking for. But in terms of squeeze, I don't think this is a type of setup where you'd be talking about a squeeze, but I'll show you where I think that potentially could come on in. I think you potentially have an ascending channel. And with this fall, this is a significant fall. So shorts over the last couple days have actually made out pretty good on this. I would mark this as a retracement. So my first level retracement is going to be coming in around those 160s. And then I think where you're going to see some reload start to come in is the start of this gap down. And then these last two retracements, which are going to be trim windows for me. But where I would see a squeeze potentially coming on in is if it started flirting above this 225 and testing these highs. I would expect some resistance, but then pullbacks if necessary. All it would take is a nice two hold, and then you could see this start giving a curl up to the upside. Where here is your squeeze potential on this pullback. I'd say a break of the channel, you could be seeing, 5 to 6 for your full extensions on that pullback. So a decent setup, and if we were to pull that over and just go back over to the daily chart, and we take this full retracement, you can see that 5 to 6 area that we just marked is the last retracement. Which, how is it going to act up here? If it made a pump like that, I would be a very happy camper. But yesterday's fill that we had on the name really wasn't the biggest fill. We just kind of respected the little breakout and we said, hey, we had some outs up over 2. We had some outs as it was moving back to the downside. Let's get a little bit of size added back onto the name and go from there. So it'll be interesting to see GNS play out. But off to the other name for today. The last title name is SoundTime. We see no reason. We had 0 fills on the name, but we see no reason. We just wanted it to close above that 250, and we're just going to mark this top right here. You can see wick, 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 and then a little bit of action here, and then holding that 250s right here. So I'd say 250 is the line in the sand. I would love to just see 250s hold. We were thinking about 270s, but now off the open yesterday. But now if it takes out 270s, I'm going to be a little bit bullish on it. And I'll be looking to the left of the chart for this 292 gap, if I remember correctly. 291, I was off. So 291s, we'll probably play the lows and we'll look for 316s. But here's the lows and here's the start of the gap. So that's that 270 that we were looking for yesterday. I'm not sure how I'm going to play it. I might just respect the 275 for a first out. But off of that, I'd say that is what we're looking for from SoundTime. We're looking just for continuation. And if you look at the daily candle, maybe it does need to pull back and show a red candle and test these 250s. I wouldn't be opposed of maybe adding some more, but they'd be small orders. If this comes into the middle of this green move, I'm not opposed of maybe even some false breaks. If we try and take the body candle tops right there and then a couple wick tops, that comes into 47s, which 47s is a unfilled gap from right there. So interesting little setup here from SoundTown. All I know is somebody need to pay me my dividend And the last time I checked the share price on, yeah, Charles, one of these days I actually am gonna go look into that ERL that you keep talking about, because like I said, I just don't know anything about that. But if you can sell this thing for 265, you're talking about GNS, and we're getting an open here soon. But if you can sell this puppy for 265 somehow, and it's a legal sell, you're not performing any illegal actions, then I'd say just go. I wouldn't mind trimming it. That's what I'd say about it. If you can get 265, that's a bargain. That's almost 100% premium that you're getting on the name. So if you can pull that off. So we are going to get an open here soon. Let's just go look at the last name, Oil, on an absolute pump. Man, it's too bad that Oil is putting this type of candle in on the weekly, because I mean, look at the bull flag setup here. 1, 2, 3. We're looking for candle number 3 to test into these highs. You can see that wick from the previous week got super close. We're looking for it to just show any type of action down here, and we would have looked at all the oil that we could, and we would have been had the bull ears on. I don't know if that's the correct term, but oil is catching a bid, so we are long on oil. We've been long on oil. For those of you that know me, we were awfully bullish on this sort of trend line hold. Whether you call it a trend line or not, some people would just call this support. But I think the big tell for oil is when it was able to really break this downtrend. And look at the bull flag that it put to do it. It passes everything that we preach. Make the run, 3 candle pullback, sets the flat top, day of consolidation, take out the flat top and run. Now kind of just trade down. Here's your extended bull flag on a weekly chart. We can just clear everything because that's all you need to know. Here's your run, 1, 2 candle pullbacks, each one with the wick of buying. And we have an open. There's my breakdown. My kids think you're boring. Oh, that's fine. Not everybody is. Hold on. Let me. I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that. Let's take a look at GNS. We are getting an alert on the go-to. We set an alert on that yesterday. Let's take a look. 315 is a gap fill. Hold on. We'll go back to these other names here in a sec. Uh, we got alerted. We're gonna go maybe toss an order on for the go-to. Here off the open. When the go-to gets going. Not the greatest look. We'll give it a little bit more time. Let's see if we can set a 310 alert and see if that triggers. If it gets to 310, that 312 gap does not fill. GNS is holding 50s. Space Mobile still holding 4. Amps, I'm very tempted. Soundhound flat open. Let's take a look at TIO. That's probably what you guys are tuning in for today. TIO up at 180s. Let's take a look at the 15-minute chart. Candle's trying to turn green. We're going to set a trim stop underneath this wick low right here. So we're going to go 165. If that price gives up 165s, we'll take a trim on the name and we'll look for retracements and reloads off of 142. We already got 69s and 75 fills, but now trying to catch a bid. I don't really see anything in the middle right here. Maybe you could say these tops and maybe a 2 flat. You take these lows, that's 180s. Maybe these right here is a 2 flat. So we can think about 2 flat. But everything aside, I think we're just going to stick with this little trim here at 160s and watch and see. And we can set an alert up for like 192s. If it gets up there, we can get ready for a trim. Oh, I'm out of alerts. That's all right. We'll keep our eyes on TIO because TIO is one that should be a nice runner today. Great volume off the open. We're already at 322K of volume. So let's go ahead and put this stop for just a trim, nothing crazy, off of 165. So if that fills, it fills. So be it. Warner Brothers is notable above this 315 level. It was kind of a flat bottom break, triple tops into resistance there. Now trying to break over top of that. Not a half bad look here. And we just got alerted on TMC. We had that alert in a few days ago. But we finally actually get that tap of that wick right there. Let's see what TMC is looking like on daily. This could be looked at as candle number 3, but the wick top coming in right there with the volume still increasing, it still might need one more day of pullback. So maybe these wick tops here, and I mean that could come in today. So gonna be interesting to see that play out. Warner Brothers holding above 13.15 is, I would say, a pretty bullish setup in my opinion. Soundtown kind of giving up, not really a gap up or a gap down. Invax still not even holding, still not coming down, but giving you the feel like, hey, frowny face setup, potentially breaking the uptrend that we have set, putting a wick into it as right now. It's a pretty solid trend line. We'll see if this wants to give up. We'll give it a little bit of leeway and move it down just slightly, just like that. What I would say to your response for your kids that I'm boring, I might seem boring right now, but I'll bring some energy today if we start getting some fills on some of these names. But let's start with TIO. If TIO wants to get going, this is the name that will bring some energy on, and we'll be playing in front of that 2 level. I could add some fills up in those middle 180s, but I still think that there is a good chance for this, and 165s. I'm tempted to move that order down to 164. Actually, I don't know why. I just feel like I'd rather not make as much money, and we'll move that stop down just one more penny. And that's just a trim. That's just a trim. We aren't getting out of TIO. TIO is going to be a good name for us. Invax catching a nice bid off that trend line, leaving a nice hammer candle for right now. Let's see it fill that gap and try the hold. That's what I'd like to see. Now let's go to some newer names. We've taken a look at everything. GNS gapping up. I said that in the pre-market that I'm okay if it gets underneath of this 150. But I want to see it wick and try and hold those 150s. So we'll keep an eye on that. So let's go look at the go-to. Go-to right through the 312 gap. So no gap fill buyers. Let's just be a little bit patient with this. It doesn't look like we're really on an uptrend. Maybe we are, but it looks like a trend line break potentially as well. Gap down right to it. So looking at it, the strength giving up negative as well. Maybe we need to trade down to this support level one more time. I don't know if they reported earnings. It looks like it says they did. But now let's look elsewhere and see if we can find anything new for the day. He is getting some volume. I don't like it yet. MSOS gapping up. How does it act at the gap? IIPR gapping up. Nope, just leaving a nice green candle. IIPR, we can maybe think about getting some trims on IIPR up in those upper 80s. DocuSign, a notable move. I'm looking for this to potentially set the neckline, have to trade down, and then when it takes out that neckline, probably a 50 break. And you're probably like, oh, we're over 50 right now. We're good to go. Yeah, I just don't think it's there yet. IIPR, or IMPP oil play. Workiva, I think top end of this little resistance right here could be something, but maybe this channel is set incorrectly as well. I think the bigger story is 116 gap. I probably don't even have to look into the chart. I just know it's right around there somewhere, and you can see almost marked it on the money. Uh, PMW is gonna be a killer for me. It was the end of the day. We've been talking about this. This chart setup was the same exact chart setup when we were rejecting it back here in middle of August. Just saying. Just saying. And we had it set just like this, 550 and 541 gap. just like that, catching a nice bid. So I mean, if it comes back in, sets a higher low, I'd look at this as some sort of neckline, and then if it takes that neckline, that would be a downtrend break potentially. Warner Brothers catching a nice bid. You can see we're looking at some sort of retracement play, but we think 1450 gap can get not 1450 gap, 1450 sort of flat top right here could be a breakout sort of level. So we'll look for some movement to the upside if that comes in. NVAX holding that trend line. You can go back to the 15-minute chart and you'll see holding with a nice green candle right here. So now I just want to see, we got 6 minutes left. So I mean, a lot of time. So this could easily wick back in underneath this gap. But nice action off of that trend line. Soundhound, a little bit of indecision, but you can see if this was some sort of a wedge pattern build for this flat top, we're sitting right in the middle of it, so nothing too crazy yet. And I think we do have one that we're going to play. I completely forgot about this, but ATHM. Let's look at the daily chart right here and make sure that we're sitting all right. Let's dip our toes into this and play this like a trend line. And I think our out can be underneath of this wick, so we're giving like 60 pennies, but we can average in more if need be. But I think it's about time that we try this. We're right at this 75 level. I feel we have decent support built in here. We can try this down to 60. So let's ATHM, auto home, no size on the bid. But let's get our first fill on the name, and we're going to be playing this, and we're giving it all the ways below, maybe even below 28. I'm not sure yet. He has good support built in over here, but we're going to try it and see if it works out for us. We've been super patient with this name, but I think this is point of contact number 18. So the odds of number 18 just not going to get that bid, I don't know. I got to see it to believe it. So live trade taken here for you guys. Not too much size on it, but we do have an entry on the name. We can see where that entry is at. Let's go take a look back at TIO in the meantime. TIO gives us a stop out of those 64s. That's too bad. I thought that first candle was looking pretty good. So if this wants to trade all the ways back down to the gap, we have 3 fills that we've had above this range. So we'll go from there. I mean, we're just going to be a little bit patient with it. No problem. They 10-11. I find you entertaining. I appreciate that, Charles. NNDM, my bad, Charles. When it's early in the stream, Nano Dimension. I can see a nice flat top break off the open. 21K, a little light volume for a first 15-minute candle. But yes, a nice continuation play. You can see if this was looked at as a confirmed higher low above, you can see you have gap fill buyers. So you can expect, some good longs probably potentially in off this 280 range. Now, if they look at that as a higher low, they're looking at this 3 break as a neckline break. You can see the false break trades down the following day and breaks it convincingly. No retest of 3. It looks pretty good. But the one thing that I would say, if I pull this for a retracement, you're in your profit take area. Is it going to start wicking into that 702 and that 786? That's the one thing I'd be worried about. But early in the day, you have a lot of time. So if this were to start wicking into that, I would expect good orders off of this 315. Not a half bad look here. Not a half bad look for continuation. You also have probably a solidified sort of trend line build right there. But does it start wicking in and we see some bigger selling pressure in front of these 325s? Maybe set to some sort of double top look. I wouldn't be looking double top. I'd be looking bullish if it set that, but all it would take is a trend line break and it would have to come retest back down into somewhere in this range. I don't know where that would be. But in terms of when the volume does start picking up, you can see a lot of green volume coming in right here. It would have been tough to take this, but when you get this green volume, this is almost 100K, a lot more volume relative to what it was doing in this chop. Well, now we get that chop, and this would have been when I would have wanted to take the trade right here on this 3 break. So I feel I may be a little bit late, but I would say that it's a reasonable setup. It's not bad. CN. Oh boy, man, why don't we have an order on this? God, look at this U-shaped formation that it was forming here, and also has some sort of trend line build right here. We just were waiting for the earnings. We were just waiting for the earnings, but yesterday when we seen it over top of this neckline, we was like, ah, man, if we can get a pullback down to 20 or 42.50, we'd think about it. Mm-mm-mm. A fresh positive break as we were pushing up, so it was kind of another shut up candle coming in here. Here's your extra day of indecision that it had. A big part about this gap was filled, so it doesn't really have to worry about it. It rejects it again, but now given the gap up, what they report, 59 cents on 1.06 billion. Probably a good quarter, I would say. And we got lows down to 62 on ATHM. We're going to keep an eye on this one. And wicking into that, so we could have easily had one more fill there, but let's see if this wants to come back in to these 75s. We're just going to alert it right here. And just like this, we're going to get alert. Let's move that alert down just a wee bit. We'll move that alert down to 70s and see if that wants to hold. IIPR wicking into that upper 80s. It looks like it taps 89.50s. I mean, this is almost in the territory. Simply because of this flat bottom break that it has, it kind of wicks below it, but reject, reject, reject before it goes. If I was going to take profits on the name, you know, if I wanted to get it a little bit higher, I do see a gap fill right here at 90.50. So we can think about something there. We can start moving that up into here. That is really starting to get going here. CrowdStrike reported small size on CrowdStrike from 99 beans. Way down here. How's that average? This is one of the January names. One that we're just gonna hold. They reported great earnings. You look at the year over year. You go from 530 up to 730. Looking at that's about a 45% continued revenue increase. I believe they increased their guidance. I only skimmed through the earnings. Like I said, not too much size, but CrowdStrike is one that I will probably try to hold as long as I possibly can, and I'll probably hold it. If it were to have dumped, I would have held it all the ways back in as low as it wanted to go. But yes, that's CrowdStrike. I'm sure their earnings were good. Haven't heard anything with the call. But on another note, FVRR catching a nice bid off of this sort of trend line. We weren't sure if it was legit because you only have really 2 points. You can call it 3 points of contact if you want. But now I'd look at this as a neckline break. So I mean, if this wasn't something I already had an entry in, I would say I would probably be looking to punch it right here. But I'm not sure if it's going to pan out. Of course, I can't tell the future, but I do like these high margin companies, and especially when they have channel setups like this. Let's get an update. Let's see what the top loser on the day are. DAL, come on back in, pup. Come on back in, baby. Come on. Start rejecting this. We're just going to adjust that channel now that we're seeing a couple of candles of rejections. ATHM. We are probably going to add some more of this today. I just wanted to keep trading down though. I forgot to see where that fill came in at. Looks like we got 76s. So you're like, ah, dude, you're out of the money, man. What are you doing? Just give us some time. Give us some time. These trend lines can be a little flexible. There's no perfect way to set a trend line. But you can see just moving it down below that little shelf, it's probably needed a little bit of adjusting. You can see that wick coming down in. So if this wants to come underneath of that, we're going to think about just getting a nice little add in those 60s. And we'll try 50s. And we'll try 40s. And we'll try 30s. We'll try 25s. I'm not sure. ATHM. Let's look back over to there. So now we are in those 60s. Looks like we are seeing a little bit of resistance. our PWM catching a nice bid off the open. Let's look back at TIO and see what that's doing. You can see it's trying to wick into these 50s. And GNS trying to hold these 50s. You see this wick coming all the ways down in the 40s and wicking back up to 47s. I would want to see it try to hold this. I do not want to see this gap get filled. I want to see that gap stay unfilled and show me that, hey, let's push. I would expect if I was making a vote, I would say that this gap is going to get filled. Is there going to be any buying pressure off it? I have no clue. But if I had to take a guess, this type of setup shows continuation to the downside. But if the buyers can hold it, that is where you can see maybe a breakout of the top of 153. ATHM putting in that wick into the middle of that wick. So not a half bad look. Could have got those 60s right there. Well, let's show a little bit of patience with this name. If we have to buy it higher, I'm not opposed to buying it. We were actually trying to buy this name at 29.25 yesterday. Never came in. So I am not opposed to buying this name higher. But I need a little bit more information to have that confidence. We got our entry right now. We're not going to rush into the position by any means. Path, man, path. Just calm down, brother. Calm down. I want to see it come back in the 1450s real bad. I mean, real bad. But other than that, just kind of chilling out right now. Just chilling out right now. PWM is going to just let me know. Haha, why didn't you buy me? Why didn't you buy me? You know, this is a good point that I'm going to bring up right here. I hope someone's here to listen to it. Traders make thousands of calls every single day. Every single day. It don't mean, I want to say a bad word, it don't mean crap if you don't pull the trigger. It don't mean crap if you don't pull the trigger. And when you have people that will sit there and say, oh, see, I told you, and they're like pointing their finger at it, I told you that was good. Watch out for those people. Watch out for them. Because if you don't take the trade and you don't put your money where your mouth is, it don't mean crap. Just gonna say that. Me, you'll never hear me say, oh, see, I told you. It's, oh, I could have been better. We're trying to take the information that we transpire, whether we say it or not. We want to take the information and move forward with it and try to get better for the next time. It's not a competition. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't have this when I could have it. You know what I mean? But when people try to use that like this, like if somebody didn't get this but they called it out, they'd be like, "See, I'm a genius. Listen to me. See, I'm a genius. See, the next time I see something like this, I'm gonna hammer it." Well, just because it works one time doesn't mean that it's gonna work the next time, and that could be that guy's worst nightmare. That guy could end up losing a boatload of money off of it, where he could actually end up just hammering it, and he could be right about it, but it needs to drop just a little bit more, and then it catches a bid, and just like that, the guy gets stopped out, and then it ends up making a rip, and he still will try to use it to his advantage. He'll still be like, "See, I knew it was gonna work out," when he ends up getting stopped out of it. So not only is he not putting, or he's trying to put his money where his mouth is now, but he'll get stopped out and still use it like, oh, I'm a genius. I hate people like that. Just kidding. I don't hate people. I just kind of just don't. I just try to stay away from people. You know what I mean? You're not going to hear me going on somebody else's channel and being like, dude, and just getting just a huge argument with them. I can tell the people that'll be able to take criticism. And those types of people, they are not able to take criticism. If I said that to somebody who was it a prime example for that, for how I was saying it, they would get their feelings hurt. They would get their feelings hurt badly. TIO coming on in to the gap. How does it act at this gap? We said that we would try it. Got awfully close right there. We can think about orders right off of it, but you can see if this is the sort of top end of the channel, this is what I'd want to actually see hold. With those two red candles, it's like, is it going to have the strength to go back up and take out the day's high? It's tough to say, but it is wicking and trying to hold these 150s. Let's take a look at ICCT. Kind of the same exact setup as TIO, almost. Actually, a better setup, uh, in my humble opinion. GNS putting in that second red candle. I'd expect gap fills at 140s to come on in. We can set alerts underneath that gap and see if it's going to get any action. But if it's not going to get any action, which, I'd say this trend line is probably something I'd look to get some action. We can also think about adding some here if we wanted to. I think our risk reward, we can run an out underneath the 35s, but I mean 35s should be good support. And down the 32s, we can take this fill off of 40s, give it 10 pennies. But then we're setting out. So let's just be patient. Let's be patient. If we can get down to here, we can think about it and then put some outs. How about NVAX setting a close on that first green candle? Where are the buyers putting the orders in at? Right at the gap fill. Right at the gap fill. Does NVAX catch a bid? If it gets over 860, I think it does. I said, you and me go fishing in the dock. ATHM. Amps. Catching a nice bid. We should have probably tried some off of that. Just up the size. But I mean, we're sitting probably right around even on the position right now. I don't see any need. Let's wait for a little bit more information. Is a little bit increased volume on these first two candles. I'm not going to say that it's, oh, this is golden. But I would say it's a little increased volume. ASTS, you can see it's trying to hold above, I'm sure this is the tops of the bodies. We switch over to the daily, that is the tops of the bodies, your first body candle and some wicks. But a nice bull flag trying to transpire. If this wants to pull back in to the middle of this green move, I think that is where we're going to be looking for. One, it would be a reload, and two, add some more size to the position. FVRR still trying to break over top of this neckline. Warner Brothers holding 15s beautifully. NVAX catching a bid up to 50s now. Soundhound, red candle coming on in. I'm not surprised if this would have to come and retest those 50s. But these tops, and we have an open gap at these 47s. We can adjust that right off of that, which is, oh, I guess it's 48s. I'm pretty sure it's 47s, but we'll see. TIO, let's go take a look back at TIO. TIO trying to hold these 50s. It doesn't fill that gap. So the longer it holds above this, it's holding the top end of the channel from yesterday. So a nice wick coming on in. If this wants to just keep holding 150s and build this sort of U shape right on top of this channel, I think it's a good look. DFS catching a nice bid. Let's clear the chart right here. Getting closer to this flat top, but a nice channel hold. I wouldn't say that this is a perfect setup right here on a 15. I think you got to go to the daily chart, and the only thing that you really need is your strength. Wait for your strength. and just set your lows right here. I'd say this is a monster level, dating back into before COVID, which runs in a little bit over here, and not too much, but I'd say this is a really good level that has been built on Discover. These upper 80s, what I want to see hold, but strength just isn't there yet. We have some news reports that isn't the greatest for the name either. So just looking for this to trade sideways. If this trades back down into here, I'd look at 91 as are these tops right here as a neckline break. But that has to come into play first. ATHM trend line looking pretty good. We got one fill on it, and we're looking to add more. Whether we add more at a higher price or a lower price, we're not sure yet. But if we start rejecting the middle of this red move, so if it catches a bid into these 29s and then starts to roll over, we will play this trend line again. And we're not going to shy away from it. We're going to be running deep stops on this one, probably underneath that 28 level. But we're going to be adding on the way down to those 28s as well. But am I going to call this green candle anything? No, I'm not. But we did respect those 75s, was the first order that we had, and we'll go from there. Looking elsewhere, I really think that Warner Brothers has got this trend building. If we see 1450s, if it breaks through, let's just clear out everything. My bad. We're going to clear out everything. Fresh chart on a 15-minute. If it can fight through this 14 and test up to 1450, I would look for maybe a pullback to this neckline, which meets in right around your half. Let's get this out of the way and switch over to the daily. So just on a 15, that's all I'm looking for right there. I forgot to mark 1450, but 1450, if we test 1450s here, I would be very bullish on this. Name a nice green move pulling into the 702. This is big information right here. You see good action right off that 702, catches a bid, and then the trend line is what has been trying to hold right here. So if it wants to build and test 1450, as soon as it breaks 1450, I think we see maybe 16s test. After 16s, you got 1750 gap. I don't think there's going to be much resistance off 1750, but we'll be looking for this flat bottom break for a potential extension on the name. Now, I know that may seem a little bit extreme, but I think that you add the downtrend in with this, and it's holding above the downtrend. Not a perfectly set downtrend by any means. You could even say it was trading below it, but a trend line hold, if it comes back in the 1250s, I'm not opposed to adding more to this name either. So that is Warner Bros. I think it's a decent setup. Looking for this trend line to hold. We can look over at TIO and see how it's holding above that. Still holding these 50s. So by no means do we need to worry about it. We got stopped out of a little bit at these 164s, but we're looking to hold this for the dream. So 164s was just a trim. We want to see this uptrend to hold, and I don't think it's going to come into play for our entry down here at 122s. But if it did, I don't know how I'd play it. I think we would probably try the reload bottom end of the channel for sure. You have a little bit of a top that test at the very end of the day, so maybe middle 130s for reloads. But other than that, let's take a look back at GNS. Where's GNS? GNS coming down to the gap. So we do have the gap fill on the second candle. Not a good setup. We have one reload on the name. But from a 1, where are we at? We're in at 122s is the average first fill on the neckline break, 120s. 3 outs on the pullback day. No outs yesterday. We actually took a fill for a reload at 146. So we'll see how this acts down here in these 130s, but it looks like it's going to give up the ghost. I would say you're going to give this up, but I mean it can still try to catch a bid, but gaps up, already gave up all of those gains, and there's no gap fill buying coming in off these 130s, 140 or 139s to 140s. Hey, it still could hold, but the only way that this is going to have a chance of holding this area in particular is if people have this trend line set, but not too much volume coming in. More red volume, of course, but we'll see how that ends up going. And GNS crossing over right now, so we're gonna watch these low 130s come into play, and we can think about maybe an order But I mean, that red move, we just need to see some buying and then we can maybe try it. Not the greatest look on GNS. Getting closer to just an exit of the position and forget about it. Here's 34s, and if I were to mark the body of this candle, that's 130s. It says 129, so okay, it's whatever. I don't think we'd hold this into the 113 gap. But right here, let's go ahead and try it. This will be the last reload that we have on the name, and we'll be thinking about outs for the name from here. So let's try a little bit of size, get us back to that 50% of the position. And what's true, man, I was going to get those 130s right there. Let's see if those 130s can come back into play. $200 lots on 34s. The buying trying to come on in for 33s. And up to 35. So nice buying off that. We didn't get the reload that we were looking for there. But we'll keep our eyes on it. ATHM still holding below 29s. Let's look at some top movers for the day. Min, no volume, not interested. ALLR actually has 3 mil in volume at a 177. Let's take a look at it. Not a half bad look. This trade sideways could be something that builds there. ABS, Shop, CrowdStrike, BNGO, Tilray, Open. Not seeing too much high volume on anything that looks reasonable. Maybe this, no, that looks bad. Shop, maybe a shop. No, not gonna take it. MSOS potentially over top of the highs from yesterday's pump and the cannabis names. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't see anything off those top movers that would interest me too much. Soundhound wicking down towards those 50s. That's kind of what we think is what we want to see hold. If it gets underneath our entry, we'll end up just getting out of the name. But probably has some sort of trend line, give or take something like that. So if this wants to be a channel, something like that, nice parallel channel, build on that. Invax, getting close to those 860s. I do think that this trend line has been legit enough for, okay, we can, if it needs to trade down a little bit and retest 850s, okay, but let's see if it can break those 860s. If not, I mean, so be it. CGC, nice little pump. Can't believe we don't have an entry on that from yesterday. Absolutely unreal. Absolutely unreal. Let's take a look back at TIO. TIO I felt was holding up decent. It's trying to hold these 150s. You can see it's continuing to wick down towards this gap. Is it going to be something that has the strength to build? This first candle, 1.7 million, does have a little wick of buying. Second candle, a lot less volume, but still 600K volume, which relative to yesterday, that was the first candle, but also a good wick of buying and a good wick of buying right here. TIO, not a half bad look. I would say as long as it holds above this channel, you have your gap fill as potential backup here at 142. Got darn close right there. So anybody with the orders off of that missed it, they're put in a position where, okay, do I need to force myself in at a higher price? So good problem to have, but you can see it wicking into the top end of that channel. Pretty good look. GNS, let's take a look back at GNS. GNS holding flat on the day. Oh man, we were so close. We had the order ready to punch in right when we seen The ask at 131. We we were so close to pushing it, but by no means am I gonna say, yep, this wick right here, you're good. It is potentially trying to hold this little bit of a trend line, but is that something I'm gonna say, yep, holding the trend line, we're good to go to the moon? No, I'm not gonna say that with this name. Honestly, I'd say it probably looks like a short. To somebody that's not in the name, I would say they're short risk reward right here. You can run it to the previous top, so your out would be like 140, and then even if it got over 140, you have the middle of this red move. So you could look for the middle of this red move to reload, and then if it starts giving you that curl, I don't know how much buying pressure this wick's gonna have. If it came like 4 or 5 candles down the road, I just don't know if it's going to be something that would be able to hold. But you know, who knows? Who knows? At the end of the day, we do have a lot of time left today, so we will see. Soundhound testing the bottom end. It looks like it's going to give up, but how do these 250s and 248 gap hold? It's going to be interesting to see play out. By no means we don't have too much size on the name, so if it ends up having to put a stop, you know, maybe 44s, but you have a good support in right there. We can maybe give it a little bit of time, maybe some sort of trend line build right there, but I'm more interested in this channel trying to hold right here. But I don't know, not the look that I was looking for right off the open. Looks like it's just catching some resistance. Maybe we should have had some outs yesterday into those upper 60s, but tough to say. Let's look back at TIO. TIO trading back in below that channel. It has 5 minutes left on the candle, so some time left. If it keeps wicking into the top end, I think it is a decent look. Other than that, ATHM, now that we have third candle, I want to see it give that frowny face and test back into these 70s. So let's go ahead and put an alert for those 75 retest. Put that alert in right at the bodies of those candles. If that triggers and then catches a bit over top it, we can think about adding a little bit more. GNS leaving a nice wick, so it is trying to hold. I will give it credit where it's due. So a battle is set to take place here on this name. IIPR kind of has the bull flag set up. Nice volume increase, relatively high volume increase. Last time it traded that type of volume was the earnings day. FVR given the gap up 1-2. Gap up, doesn't have the weakness to fall. What was that? 8 cents. Stays bullish. Now if it takes out 80s, I would be pretty bullish on this little break right here. I'd look at it as a neckline. You got the trend line hold. We go back over to the daily. You can see the setup of the potential ascending channel. Earnings day is kind of a false breakout of that channel. But to keep it parallel, you match these highs, meets up pretty well. I don't see how I could set this chart any differently. The only thing is I could add this gap and could add this gap. And we could look at those for anybody buying the trend line or taking the neckline. We could look at profit takes for those gaps, but top end of the channel, I'd be pretty bullish on this name if it started testing up towards here. Well, obviously that goes without saying, doesn't it? But Soundhound trying to catch a bid. You know, that trend line is there, but if we just clear out everything and look at it from this perspective, this is nice support that could be held right here. We could just see a wick come on into these 48s. But I'd want to see it try to hold the price action right here. If it comes into that price tomorrow, okay, I would feel a lot better about that. If it wicks into it and leaves a nice wick, and then it's like, okay, let's hold 50s. But if it doesn't fill that gap today, tomorrow has some leeway to come more into this green move, and we'll see where it goes from there. But looking back at TIO. TIO still trying to hold the top end of channel. We got 2 minutes, 3 minutes left here. Is it going to be able to hold though? Is the question. ATHM, here's this candle coming on in. It's gonna the battle's gonna take place where we got trend lines, and we got people trying to buy the trend line and people trying to short before the break of the trend line. That's what we're going to be looking for here. But looking at the daily chart, that is a monstrous trend line. Is it going to be something that holds? It's held, I don't know how many times. If you count every one of these wicks that went into it and you count that as a hold, I think my count comes in at 18, but I could be wrong. If you count that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, at least 9 points of contact, I would consider this trend line. A good look. I'd want to get this position built a little bit more and probably running the outs underneath 28. So running a deeper stop on this, not a popular trading or investing strategy, but I feel the name itself is reasonable to run a deeper stop. It's profitable. They're growing. Uh, Monstrous trend line. If it catches a bid before you know it, your breakout where people are going to be raving about it, you're probably going to see some news drops for whatever reason. If it gets over 34, I mean, you have a nice flat top build up here in these upper 30s. Your risk reward just from current price right here to those upper 30s is very reasonable risk reward. But from this channel to the top end, I'd say 75% is not out of the question. So I don't know. What do I know? I think it's a reasonable trend line to try, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So if that alerts, then we will be back to it. TIO holding this trend line, continuing the wick, still has not filled that gap. We have 3 outs up here. First out at 68, second out at 75s. We don't, and not in this candle. Those were all in the pre-market. But we could have got some in the 80s, but we stopped some out underneath the first wick low. We go to a 5-minute candle, and you can see here's your wick low at 66s. We said, hey, if it gets underneath of that, we'll stop some more out, and we'll try the gap. We said when we stopped out that we were going to try this gap. Gets darn close, but it still looks like it's going to need to work out some levels. So let's see if it can show me a candle, show me a neckline, and then continue holding these 150s. We can think about it then. But until then, I don't really see a reason to force ourselves into the reload just yet. Where's GNS? GNS still trying to hold this a little bit of trend line. Excuse me. We have a nice wick of buying pressure though. So is this going to be where the trend starts to change? It's going to be tough to tell. Tough to tell. Baba giving the gap down, but it does fill this gap right here. Gap fill buyers holding it up nicely. Does it hold this level? Going to be interesting to see. Invax, start of pullback candle number 1. We got a nice 3 candle move with increased volume on that third one. If this pulls back into 45s, this little neckline top right here, I'd say you got a pretty good look for a potential 860 break. But we do have the next candle. I'd expect TIO's candle to be green, and I am wrong. So is it going to turn green? If it turns green and starts showing me, how does the gap work? Let's go to the tape on this name and take a look at it. GNS back down to the 35s. Keeping an eye on GNS right there. Soundhound catching a small bid off this candle. But here's 44s on TIO. And there's 43s. Let's try and hit a reload here. Just to the size that we had going into the open. Let's see 42s right here. Are we going to be a tight ass for 1 penny? Let's punch it. Okay, so we got the reload on our trims for today. We'll see if this has any weight to it, but we're going to watch this now. And I'll keep an eye on ATHM, and we'll keep an eye on GNS. So I'm just going to move this name right there so that they're right next to each other. We'll move Warner Brothers right there as well. And other names that we need to watch, I'm not sure. But we're good with this. Let's see where that fill came in at. We should have got 43s. 43 quarters. just looking for volume here. Just looking for volume here on the side. We'll see if we can find anything. G-sit, 4% day. Nothing to brag about. And there's 42s. Let's see if this gap gets any type of buying pressure. You can see a small, tiny wick, but now that gap is officially filled. Not any buying pressure that we would expect, but 150 lots on it. We'll see if it can hold. 140, 34 lots on it. Kind of giving out these lows is a bearish setup, but a lot of time left in this candle. All it would take is, even if it came down and tested 40s, all it would take is to wick back up to like 45s. Excuse me. And just like that, there's our wick into that gap. And bid stacked on 44s. We'll see if this can keep holding right here. The SPGC, we can move this out of here. Not interested in that name. There's 46s. And how about that nice candle coming in? Maybe this is where the frowny face needs to work. We could build it. So here's 1, 2, 3 candle move. Given that stair step look, so I would look for this to push actually up into those 29s, and then if it false breaks and comes down to here, we like the add in these 70s again. And there's 29s. Let's go take a look back at TIO. TIO still at 45s here. But the big part is that it wicked into those 42s. 10 minutes left in this candle. So now if it gets down to 42s, it's like, okay, are we going to break down from here? We go over to the hour chart. You can see nice hour candle move. Volume increase. Is this going to be the top for the day? More than likely, but that doesn't mean that it can't take this out later. We look at the daily chart. And as long as it wicks into these 40s, which it closed at 40s, the gap showed at 42s, so maybe 40s is a good hold spot. But you can see we got a clean positive break on increased volume. A lot of candle left today. This candle can still turn green. I mean, we got a lot of time left on the candle, so by no means do we need to panic about anything. ATHM, let's go take a look. Holding 25s. But wicking into this red move. This is what we want to see. We want to see it start to reject, come back into these 70s. We got our alert set, so if it comes back into here, we're going to be punching the long. Now we have more information. It's not as much of a red engulfing to the downside. So I would say I got the AOK to punch if we get down into these 70s again. That's for me. That doesn't mean that you guys should do it, but I'm punching it, and we're going to see how it works. If it even comes down to 2850s, I got a plan for that. 2850s right here. So we're going to be punching 2850s if it comes on in. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Looking at Soundhound, wicking into this trend line. Let's take a look back at TIO. TIO still holding that wick above 40. Let's see what the bid's at. The bid is holding 44s up. It just took them out. So we got 100 or 200 lots on 43s. We'll see if this can do anything for us here. We will see, but we're keeping our eyes on GNS as well, still holding those 136s. Looking back over to it, it's just not a good look, so we actually should have an alert on this name. If this alerts 133s, we can come back and maybe think about time to exit GNS, unfortunately. We wish that it was holding up a little bit better. But it would still be a green trade. Even with the reload up here in the 146s, our average only got moved up to 26. So still keeping it a green trade, and we're only sitting at, I believe, 35% of the position. The reload we were trying to get here on these 130s would have put us back up to 50%. So we've made out pretty good on the name, and by no means is it anything to keep our head down with. We'll take the positives of this trade. Maybe we could have been more aggressive on some outs that we had on this pullback day. And maybe we could have been more aggressive trying to reload this neckline on this first, and then thinking about more trims as it retraced up back up to those 180s. Soundhound, trying to hold this trend line. Is it going to be able to? More than likely not. ATHM 29s. I want to see a confirmed higher low, and if we miss our fills on this next pullback down into this range, we'll look at this top as a neckline. We're not opposed to buying at a higher price, but we'll see when that time comes. Let's go take a look back at TIO. TIO is still holding that 142 gap. On the daily, it's showing me that 140 is actually the gap. But we'll see how that ends up playing out. So we can keep 140s marked, and then we just have our channel. So let's see it get back on the top end of the channel here, and we'll go from there. ASTS, kind of just trading sideways. We have a plan set in place for this name. We think 92s is a nice little flat top on our daily, which is kind of a little bit above where our entry actually is on this green candle. So if this bull flag pans out, we want to see the buying pressure coming in the middle of this green move. Warner Bros. Wick top up to 30s. Checking the box though. I mean, getting over 13.15 was what I wanted to see it do today. GNS. God, why did I adjust it? Why did I adjust it? Where's our GNS at? God, why do I do that? 35, so let's move this right in the middle right there. So I'm going to look at ATHM and GNS. Let's go take a look back at TO. TO up to 47, so a nice little reload that we had as of right now, but you can see it continuing to wick. If this wants to start giving us that curl, I'd look for rejection off of this. I don't know why we marked this. Let's go take a look. Just marking the wick top over here through the move. 156, we could see a little bit of resistance and pullback. We'd want to see 150s hold though. But I don't see anything else that we should really mark. If this wants to catch a bid, if it sets the neckline, holds 150s or even these wick lows, and then breaks that neckline, that would be the ideal setup. Invax still holding 50s. You can see on the 15-minute, here's your 3 green candle move. Pullback candle number 1, 5 minutes left. Lighter volume. So if the next candle pulls down, I want to keep seeing wicks, and I want to see this neckline get bought up right here. So Invax, really not a half bad look. If we weren't already in this name playing the longer trend line, I'll give you guys the pitch. I mean, the nerve was set. I mean, we held this on the false break at 7, sitting in at an average of 24s. I mean, the resilience was unreal. But had fun with this move to the upside. Now, if I wasn't in it here, this trend line is very enticing. We got multiple points of contact, holding like a glove. If it gives up, you have your backup here at 805, which is your gap. We can go back over to the daily chart, which is the middle of your green move. GNS crossing over. GNS is getting close to an exit. Let's go double check on our average for this name. Excuse me. But I don't think we can really call this a trend line anymore. Maybe you can call something right here as like a secondary. You do have a nice neckline here. Is it going to be something that can hold? It just doesn't look like it. There's no buying for the name. I'm a lot more interested in TIO, if I'm being honest. So maybe we just think about setting an exit for the name. If I was going to set an exit, I don't know how I feel about a 125 exit. We have a neckline here that can hold. But I think we are going to get on the verge of potentially setting an out for this name. Here's 29s coming on in. We were just looking at buying 30s. Now I just don't see it. So with 35% of the position left, we can think about outs. We can give it underneath these 20s. That puts it a little bit red for those shares and the shares that we bought yesterday. But, You know, if this somehow had a chance of holding up, let's reset that channel to the downside like we had it yesterday. I look at it as like some sort of wedge pattern right here. Is this something that's going to be able to hold? Put in a bind with this one. Let's reset an alert for 26s. Right into this neckline. This is below the original entry. I mean, are these same buyers that took this move? This is just the itty bitty start of that volume increase, and then it really got going the following day. I just don't know if this is going to be a name that can work out for us or not. Let's take a look back at TIO. TIO holding 150s, that wick right into the gap, very resilient. Now showing a green candle, a nice look. We like this setup honestly a lot better than GNS. That goes without saying. ATHM, so live trade taken for you guys here. We got a 28.76 fill, playing it like a trend line. You can see the resilience of the trend line. We got it marked at 9 points of contact. If you count every one of these wicks, I think it's 18 or 19. So now that it shows us this move, if it does come back in here, we're just going to be looking for some sort of add. So let's move this alert up for the top of these wicks right here, which is 29 retest, and we will go from there. So if that alerts us, we're going to probably just mark it in for some and then put an order right off 29s and see how it goes. We are wicking into where we were trying to buy it yesterday, actually, which is kind of interesting. But if this wants to build some sort of frowny face, even if we buy 29s and it comes lower, we are going to continue adding on to this name. That doesn't mean that you guys should. That's just what I'm doing. GNS wicking in, so maybe this wick is an out for us. So underneath of that wick, how does it act? Let's go take a look back at TIO. We like the candle that's coming in on TIO, trying to hold these 150s. Other than that, that's what we're watching for today. So, I mean, if you guys got any tickers you want me to take a look at, by all means, toss them in the chat, and I will take the time to go look at them. I think TIO's looking good. All the other trades are looking fine. THM, we have an alert set. GNS, we're looking at an exit, but we still think it has potential. Still trading inside of this descending wedge. If it can show us some sort of bid, I would expect hard resistance off of these 40s, which was your gap that you didn't have any gap fill buying for. So if it retraces up, boom, is that going to be a potential top? And we take out the lows, maybe it's a bearish setup. You got increased red volume. The candles don't look too good. All it would take is for this to build that little frowny face, and boom, just like that, you see this come all the ways back in to this 107, maybe one flat, which your one flat is this wick top right there. So that's how I would see it. I don't. Doesn't look like there's too much liquidity looking to be grabbed. ATHM turned green on the day. Now officially green on the day. I'll be damned. Take a look at that. Trendline tap number how many? Who knows? Who knows? That's too many to count for me. But getting an entry on that was important for us today, and we weren't going to let that slide. We were not going to let that get by us today. Yesterday we thought it got by us, and we're like, man, that was the half of the push up. You can see the half holding right there. We thought that this was going to be it, so we got blessed by it coming back in, and by no means is it perfect. I just am very happy with that fill that we had on the name. Let's look back at TIO. TIO, still not out of the woods yet. I mean, the candles are getting smaller. Here's your first candle. Each one has a wick of buying. That is important. We can see the candle getting smaller, those three getting smaller, and then this candle closing green. We got 12 minutes left on this candle. Is it going to be able to hold this sort of area? Maybe. But we do have a reload on the name from everything we trimmed in the pre-market. If this starts to catch a bid up into the 160s again, I would expect some selling pressure. If we just looked at this as a retracement from the move today, here's your 160s as your half, maybe 58s is first outs, but 50s trying to hold is a good look. Soundhound trying to hold the trend line. Does it catch a bid? I would expect rejection from this body and wick lows. Boom. Reject 60s. Come back in. Is it going to be able to hold the trend line? That's what I would look for there. GNS. Is it going to be able to break this wedge pattern to the upside? If it does, maybe ads down here is reasonable, but um, I think I'm ready to get out of the name, in all honesty. GM, maybe building the flat top, but I would say your line in the sand is these 30s. We look over to the daily chart, and you can see it's testing that 34. Doesn't need to trade sideways a little bit longer. 32 was extremely resilient. But a monster trend line on GM as well. So if it comes back into this range, we are going to think about adding more GM as it approaches. Let's take a look back at TIO. TIO still holding 50s. I know this looks just silly, so let's just clear everything. Let's keep a clean chart for you guys. How's oil looking? I'm sure some people tuning in for oil are like, dude, what the heck is this guy talking about? uh, these 60, 70-year-olds tuning in. Oil bulls. Oil, oil, oil. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think oil is a great investment. That's where the difference of investing and trading comes into play. We're focusing a little bit more on trading. I do apologize for that. But I would say oil looks really strong. Catching a nice bid, taking out the highs, nice green candle. The weekly chart tells you the story. Here's your pullback candle number 1, 2, number 3. I said when we were on this pullback last week that I'd be surprised if candle number 3 put in that green candle. We were expecting, actually I said I'd be surprised if candle number 4 gave you that green move. But the oil move, I mean, when you give this type of setup, and sometimes a weekly chart, maybe this is good teaching and good learning. Sometimes those pullbacks on you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4 rejecting wave 1 and a final wave 5. Normally I'd look for some sort of confirmed higher low, which could have been the weekly candle for today. But pushing through 83s, oil is extremely strong. Extremely strong. GNS, what happened to my 34? Double EMA. Suggest that to the 34. Devon, looking very good. We've talked about Devon multiple times, but wicking down into this level, this 51 level, it just has breakout written all over it. Nice sideways consolidation. It's giving the look like, hey, we're getting ready to put that green candle in, test up towards this resistance up at 52. Let's take a look back at TIO. TIO continuing the wick into this level. You can see the build. You can see the build. A lot of buying pressure coming in into these upper 40s. And still, even on the pullback, solid decreasing volume where You're looking for this type of candle to kind of set the pace where, okay, the second candle, the volume, you're expecting it to be matched to the downside. Well, it's getting matched with the buying pressure is what it's getting matched with right now. ATHM. Does this pull back into those body candles? That's what we're looking for. ATHM. We like the setup here. Looking at some of these names, ZI. That's a nice candle look on ZI. ZI might be a buy here. Confirming a higher low, a nice tight consolidation right here. If it takes out this high right here, this could be something that gets going. But out of that oversold, we've been patient with the name. Does it need one more leg down to the bottom end of the channel? You can see a nice descending channel here. ZI, I like the long here. Does it pan out though? It's always the question. We like ZI. ASTS holding. You can see it gaps up, fills the gap, starts to catch a bid a little bit. I can look back at that NNDM nano dimensions and continuing the push higher. So a nice green candle move on this. If this pulled back in to the middle of this move, you know, it doesn't look half bad. Kind of discrediting the last retracement right there, right now. So not a half bad move there. GNS. GNS. Looking around, looking around. Let's look back at TIO. TIO still holding these 51s. I think this is uh, in that area where we can put an alert here off these 42s. If it starts to give up 42s, let's see what alerts we got on. We can take a look back at the go-to trade, but Harmony, I think we can take the. Wait, let's take a look at Harmony real quick. Catching a bid, of course it is. Catching a bid. Let's take that alert off. I don't think we're gonna see that come on in back to this flat top. But let's take a look at the go-to down to this 3 range. So let's take a look at the daily here. Maybe there is a nothing burger there. DVN right at that 51. GNS giving the feel like, yeah, this is gonna get ready to go further to the downside. ATHM just alerted us. I can't believe that. We gotta go back to that immediately. I want right back in. Probably needs a little bit more time, giving us that feel like, you know, we can think about small orders off of those 95s. The wick highs is right off of those 29 flats. But right here, coming right back in. And GNS wicking into 26s briefly. We're going to try 120s. 120s, we're going to try one last out right there. Or one last buy right there on 120s. And we can set outs right at 110s. We'll give it a chance. Foot Locker continuing a nice turn to the upside. Looking into 25s. Another 4% downside risk for those 20s, but we are going to think about it. Not a good look, but ATHM right into these 29s. Light volume. Take a look back at TIO. I didn't get alerted on it yet, but continuing to hold. Hey puppy, what is it? Uh, this TIO looks pretty good. I like the reload that we have on it. ATHM doesn't need the retest down here. Let's reset that alert in for these 96s. NVAX. Pullback candle number 1, now number 2. I'd expect some sort of selling pressure into these 50s. Does it give that stair step look? Do we need the retest down to this trend line again? GNS trying to hold these 26s. Here's 26s looking like a continuation. Just not any buying coming in for GNS, sadly. But still has this sort of descending wedge pattern. But we do have an open of the next candle. Let's see how TIO is looking. And TIO trying to hold it, pushed up to those 52s. So trying to hold looks good, but you are gonna have to worry about this descending channel. You can see each one just marking all those wicks. You got the descending channel look right there. Is it gonna be something that can hold? So hopefully it just discredits that right away. But I'd say if it does, GNS crossing over 25s. There's 25s right there. We're gonna get an ad here off these 25s and see if it has anything. So trying to reload, this puts us up to around that 40%. But we'll try it. And we'll try and keep reloading this into those 20s. If it does push up into those upper 30s, we might think about potential exit on the name. But here's 24 is just continuing the knife to the downside. Shorts just have a lot of control in this name, in my opinion, right now. NVAX pushing above those 50s, so that's a good start. Baby, get ready. ATHM right at 29 flat. Still hasn't alerted us. Potential. Potential. I'm not going to say it's golden, but there is potential for that. Let's take a look back at TIO. Still haven't got alerted on it. Still holding 150s. Still has a descending channel look. Soundhound kind of giving up the trend line. How does it act on the retest of 50s? Let's just clear everything. I'd say this is the support we really want to take right off of that. You know, if we take the wick tops, just trying to get that wick top right there, that is 250. So we'll see how that acts if it comes in the 250s. But GNS, I mean, we're flirting with the original entry here. I mean, this is not pretty. It was up 16% in the pre-market, so if you'd have told me, yeah, this is coming down to your original entry today, I would have said, eh, we'll see. But yeah, not a good look here on GNS. You and me go fishing in the night. Take a look back at TIO, and then we'll look at ATHM. ATHM right around this 29. You can see it wicking down to those 97s. GNS trying to wick into this level. ATHM, come on, keep coming on in, baby. PWM, nut up or shut up area right here. Testing right into that 34. See what that daily chart's looking like. Still not enough information, but that wick top gives me the feel that, hey, I can get this down lower. Maybe even lower than, I got my teal building in here at these fives. Amps, wicking down as low as 28s it looked like. Did it really get down to 28s today? Got down to 30s, man. That would have been a really good ad, I feel. Humble opinion. GNS trying to hold this level. Invex. There is your selling pressure into the red move. Now do we hold? Given the look like, hey, a stair step could be coming on in. Boom, stair step. So I'm probably not ready to go yet on this name. 22s is the wick low. Let's see what the bid's looking like. Not too much size on the bid. GNS, I don't know how much patience I can have with the name. I mean, if this ain't patience, then I don't know what is. This is a good example. When you have a dandy of an entry, I did the same thing with Nikola, is have some outs on the way to the downside. But we do have one reload on the name today, and that fill came in, should have been at 24s. Let's take a look though. We got 25s. So just because we're 1 penny in the money, I would expect a lot of selling pressure to come into these 30s. Soundhound coming on into these 50s. We can alert this right off that 50 and see. We'll add it off of. TIO, let's take a look back at TIO. We still haven't got alerted on it. Still just kind of holding the level. Giving you some sort of neckline, so if we do trade down to these 42s, I thought we had this alerted. There we go. Invex, there's your stair step. Looked great. Was a full green engulfing candle, but you always got to take into consideration that red candle. When it's also candle number 3, it's not really supposed to go right there. But this is a stair step look. When that first pullback candle is a red candle, I've seen this 100 times. Doesn't mean that it always works out that way, but it is a stair step look. How does it act if it comes down to these 37s? Just marking the gap. There's your gap at 36s. Well, the top of that is 38, give or take. Warner Bros. Uh, Looks like continuation. Looks good. Devon gaps up, fills the gap. Couple wicks of buying, and boom to the upside. ATHM still holding these 29s. If this gets over 29.30, that is going to probably be an ad for me. I know you're like, dude, ad? Are you kidding me? Yes, I will be adding higher. But I mean, I don't have anything else for you guys. I mean, if you guys got something that you guys want me to take a look at, by all means, I will. But we're not looking to really get into anything else today. We're looking to play the same names that we've been playing because we have, GM, I'd say it looks pretty darn good. Off the trend line, catching a bid, back to the upside. FVR, wicking close to that gap, not quite getting there though. ASTS, nice move, retested back up to those 402s. Just continuing the trade sideways. So if this wants to be the retracement, probably have a wave pattern. Boom. Probably a wave pattern, now just trading sideways. If it turns into a retracement, 411s, and then over top of the highs from 2 days ago is a nice little breakout area. GNS still holding these 25s. Finally a green candle trying to come in. So a little bit better feel here. You and me are fishing in the down. Let's take a look back at TIO. ATHM right around 29s. TIO still trying to wick into the level. If it can just hold these 45s, which is above the gap up, I would say your neckline break is sort of building right here. Where does it need to build a flat top right here, give you a bull flag, and then take it out? Maybe. But we do have a 43 fill, 43 quarter fill. ATHM, there we go. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Alright, now we can start thinking about some orders into these 85s. Are we going to get this confirmed high or low here? This is what we really want to see. We're going to keep an eye on GNS 127s. Let's go take a look at ATHM. Invex wicking down towards those 40s. Still has hope, but given the descending channel look, GNS trying to catch a bit. It keeps tapping those 27s. I'd expect some selling pressure up into those low 30s. Humble opinion. ATHM. This is one that we're looking to get some size on. So come on in. Come on in, baby. You're like, dude, what are you're really playing this like it's a double bottom? No, I'm playing this like it's a, what's the right term for a 18 point of contact? No, I'm just kidding. Playing this trend line. We'll see if it works out for us. This is going to be a swing trade where, first outs maybe up into those 31s, but going to be small trims. Up into 33, 34 range. We can have some more aggressive trims, definitely respecting the gap. And then top end, flat top at 38. If we get lucky, 50 is top end of the channel. So we'll see if that comes in. That would be quite the move. GNS up to 28s. So not a half bad look. Uh, if this wicks and holds, if it closes above 31s today, I'd say that's a good step. But you can see the tight channel to the downside. Still has strength, so by no means is it just terrible. But here holding 29s. Holding 29s, take a look back at TIO. TIO, okay, here we're talking now. Are we going to get this red engulfing to this trend line that held like a glove yesterday? I would look at it as a little bit of false breaks to the downside, but you look at the 30 minute, a lot of green candle moves. You look at the hour chart, we're on hour candle number 1, 2, pulling back into the trend line. We got some wick tops right here. We got some tops in here at the 30s. So by no means, just because it comes on in, doesn't mean that this is over. I got a lot of time left for this to sort of develop. ATHM wicking down. We should be getting a candle open. So does this next candle test down into this range? That is a decent red candle, a nice full red engulfing candle. I'd expect some selling pressure on the retest of 50 for sure. So do we see this 42 come back into play? Trying to turn green, but I'm expecting some selling pressure into that candle. GNS, I can say that since we put that trend line in, is that something that's going to be able to hold? It's tough to say. Tough to say. We do see the volume increase coming in on that candle, so maybe there is some hope there. But let's take a look back at Nano. That is a call from, what's the ticker? Still sitting at those 32s. Pull back in the 19 could have been added on dip buy. But we are in the names that we're in for today, and we are focused on ATHM. Next candle opening down. Let's see. Let's put an alert off these 88s, and that will give us the A-OK to say, hey, if that triggers, we're ready. We are ready all the way down to this trend line. Let's take a look at CRM. GNS trying to catch a bid. TIO seeing a little bit of wicker pressure into those upper 40s. I like the one part that I like about this is that the volume does increase on this green candle, and it's got kind of a washout bottom for the continuation. So if it does come back into these 23s, I do think that there's enough information to have, but I think outs for this trend line, we are not gonna give it down to this gap. We think that if that comes in, it can wick into that and come right back up, but I don't think we're gonna be interested in holding it down there. We got one reload for today on the name at 125. So, 4 pennies in the money is nothing to brag about, but it is a reload. Got us back up to around that 40%. I do like the TO setup a little bit better. Even if it needs to pull back in just a little bit, I'm looking for washout wicks into that 140. It's got good support right there. But I think looking at top end of this, I would say it's kind of discredited. This has a channel play, but trading back in that channel, I would say get that last wick contact in there. You maybe pull this down just a little bit, sort of like that. So maybe if it does pull back in, if this trend line can hold, maybe it can start respecting top end of the channel again. I did say that Boyle was setting up a nice flat top. Let's go to the daily chart on Boyle. I see that is up all right. It's up 2% on the day, but it does have this neckline right here that could be played. You're getting a fresh positive break. Nice trend line hold. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of contact. And yes, sir, ATHM. Let's go back over here. We got to get some more size on the name. So come back in. Let's get this order off. Let's just go mark it in for a little bit. We've been patient on this pullback. I think it's time. We're trying to put this order in off 2880s. And we will go right off 75s for a little bit more size as well. Okay, we got our orders set. GNS, I want to see some light volume here. I don't want to see this continued volume move. Let's take a look at ATHM. Let's go see if we got that fill as well. So hopefully we were able to get this fill. We were not able to get this fill. I don't want to pay 7 cents higher though. I'm being a tough ass for 7 cents here. It took out those 79s right there. I should have gave us a fill. How? How can it take out a 79 order and not give us 80s? There's some 80s that just went through the tape right there. We still didn't get the fill. There's 79s that just went through the tape. We had to have got the fill. Okay, there we go. We got the fill. So yes, there we go. That is part of the plan right there. That is what we wanted. Uh, just putting out a couple resting orders on this name. So we got a couple resting orders on this name. GNS giving up the ghost just a little bit, so we do gotta get ready for a potential exit on GNS. Sad to say it, but there is bigger fish to fry. That is for sure. Let's take a look back at TO, see what that's doing. Trying to hold this range. So if it can hold as a green candle, still giving that look like stair step action could be possible. But if it discredits it, that 153 break looks pretty good, I'd say. GNS trying to wick into this. There we go. Okay, so we're seeing more buying pressure, trying to hold it above this. So that's a good sign, but still looks like gonna have some pressure, some selling pressure into that range. I am a little bit scared of that wick on this weekly chart, but still leaving a little bit of wick pressure right there. So I do like the setup still. GNS still holding, trying to hold this little trend line. Is that going to be enough? I just don't know. But it does have that gap at 113s that could just have to go fill. If this is the move of increased volume, 1, 2, 3, that pullback comes in strong though. Still a lot of green volume. Let's look at the hourly. Second hour, look at that. 1, 2, 3 starts to build that U shape, now taking out the top end of that U. ATHM coming on in a little bit more. These wicks, we said we were going to buy them. That 75 is filled. I didn't even realize that was at 74s. So 75 fills there. This is what's getting our attention right here. ATHM. I don't know how else you can draw it, but we're playing this trend line. We've been super patient with the name. Showed us that I can get over top of these lows, which was a nice neckline break right here. We were patient yesterday. This is what we're trying right here today. GNS, I don't think we can show any more patience than we have with GNS. From the original neckline break, our original entry is coming into question, so not too much more leeway we can give with it. TIO, we think that this is potentially a channel that can hold. If we just clear everything, I would say I would just have this trend line marked and then have your gap marked. You have gap fill buyers off these 42s, which is our reload today. We actually got 43s. But it does have a descending channel potential look right here. So by no means is this, in the clear. So if this trend line cracks, that could potentially be our out. We're in from 122s. Had 3 outs. Our best fill was a 75. We could have respected those 80s, which looking at the daily chart, uh, the reason why we wanted to respect 75s is because we thought that this gap was going to start getting filled. So we were had the bull ears on a little bit for a push up to 2, but that is your flat top. So if this wants to eventually break that flat top, I think 250 could come into play a little bit. But ATHM, this is where the focus is at. GNS trying to hold 25s, and then oil. I mean, oil is catching a little bit of a push to the downside. So if this is a retracement, right at that 702 is showing a wick, and that last retracement is showing a little bit of pressure as well. I would say maybe it needs to pull back into these lower 70s still this week. GNS, keeping an eye on it, trying to hold this level 127s, and TO still holding these 140s. There's your wick. All it needs is to discredit this downtrend, and your neckline break at 150s could be something. So here's the open of the next candle. ATHM. Is this going to start putting this next candle in? We're going to be here ready to go in these 60s. MSON. MSOS. Absolute pump. And what keeps happening to my... GNS still trying to hold this. I mean, this is the last bit that we have. I mean, we can't play this any. We can't give this any other more credit than that. Maybe the support down to the gap at 113, but I mean after that, I mean there's nothing there. So I don't know if we're gonna give it to this gap. I don't think we are. Just have this alert here just in case we need to hurry up and go think about an exit. But man, it's too bad. Only one fill on the name today at 25. Just trying to respect this trend line, but we don't want to let this get against our entry here. ATHM, open of the next candle. I'd expect some pressure into those 2890s, but if this pulls back in into these 60s, we're going to be buying it, and we'll see how it goes. TO still trading sideways. Can it discredit this sort of descending channel right here? Probably not a perfectly set channel, and given the stair step look, here's your red move, decreasing volume with wick pressure, but here's your frowny face that's trying to be made. Here's a red candle. You got selling pressure into the middle of the red candle. Boom. Does it give a flush through the entirety of the move? Trying to catch a bid. I still think that if it gets up to these 48s, that this red candle right here could see some selling pressure, and we could see a flush through the level. GNS, given the look. Here's your red move. 1, 2. This is number 3. So we just want to see it keep wicking into this level and discredit this bear flag. Sound still holding 50s. We like the support built at 250 to 247, and we'll see how it acts if it gets there. Uh, Invax traded right back to the trend line now. A nice green candle coming on in. This trend line looks really good, I would say. Great action. I mean, if you're looking for risk reward right off that, you can give it underneath 25s. You can give it underneath these wicks if you wanted to. You can give it underneath these wicks. You can give it underneath of the entirety of the move. It's a deeper stop, but could pan out for you. I'd say Invax isn't a half bad look. ATHM still trying to hold these 75s. GNS looks like crap. GNS looks like crap. CGC. Imagine having. Oh, how about that? Well, wait a minute. This is good stuff right here. All we did was mark this gap, mark this trend line. Said, hey, gapped up. 41 break looks legit. Let's see if it can come on in. Here's your trend line on the 15-minute. Let's go take a look at that. Man, can we go look at that alert that we had on CNGC yesterday? Can we take a look at it? Is it there? Do we really not have that alert there? Probably because it canceled. Yep, we canceled it, so it could have never came in filled. Unbelievable. Talk about a move. Talk about a move. We said 60 something percent risk reward on this trade. There it is. We would have had it. Oh my, that's just gonna bother me so much. That's gonna bug me. That is gonna bug me. Literally would have had the golden entry. Gonna hold a piece for the dream. We'd still be holding some. But we definitely would have respected that gap. Wicked right up to it. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Man, we're out of coffee. Other than that, pretty boring. You guys got anything you want me to look at? By all means, throw it in the watch or throw it in the chat. We'll take a look at it. Or if you're here for one of the title names, I mean, by all means. I mean, we put oil up there because oil was really strong, and I still think oil is strong even though it's coming on in. Uh, I think oil looks good. My humble opinion. We got TIO. TIO's still holding the level. We did hit a reload on it. We had 3 fills, 2 of them in the pre-market. One of them was a stop at 164 from a 122 entry, and we reloaded off 43s. So I mean, I got nothing else for you guys. So if this is what you like to watch, by all means, have at it. GNS, we're going to be looking for an exit on GNS today. Uh, we had 1 reload off 25, so we're 1 penny out of the money off that reload. We had a reload yesterday off of this break of 146. That put us up to around 35%, and now we're sitting at around 40% of the original position here at these 120s. Original positions at 120 break, even had some 124 fills. Printed it pretty well. We've had 2 reloads. Best out on the name, I believe, was a 38. 38, and we're on the bid or the ask at 50s that didn't fill. So looking back, man, I wish we cut more off of the GNS when it was up there, but we still think that this sort of trend line has a little bit of hope, but I'm not going to say it's golden. You're weak on your 15. The only thing that's really holding you is that you have your strength on your daily. You have increased volume. I'd want to see light volume pullback. If this is pullback candle number 3, maybe there's hope for a break of this wedge pattern. But after that, I mean, we're ready to get out of GNS. We are ready to just be done with the name. ATHM is a name that we just got two reloads on. We got 80s, or not reloads. We got our original fill came in at 76s. We said, hey, if this comes back in, we think that this trend line is a legitimate trend line that we're willing to play. We've been so patient watching this just bounce off this trend line every single time. And we even seen this neckline break that we did not see coming. Kind of the flat bottom breaks that neckline. Yesterday we were trying to get fills off the neckline, went to work, didn't have any orders in on it, and now we are fortunate enough to start our position off 76, and we also got 80s, and we also got a 75 ad. So we got 3 fills on the name. It looks like a short. In my humble opinion, shorts are going to try to short this through that trend line, but I don't know. You guys do the math or do just small calculation of how many times this trend line is held, and now starting to catch a little bit of a bid. I will not be shy of adding on this neckline break. So now that we're starting to show a hold, I'd expect rejection. We're looking for any fills in the 60s, but as soon as this starts catching a bid and gets close to this neckline right here, we are going to be thinking about adding on top and averaging higher on that neckline break if it comes in. We don't know if it's going to happen, but GNS really looks like it is going to get continuation to the downside. Just weak. It looks weak on the day. It's not a very good financially sound name, so not a name that I really want to hold too much. But you know, at the end of the day, when we end up getting stopped out of this name, it's going to be green. When you're talking about Prince up at 238, almost a straight double up, we were not shy at taking profits on this name. Even had 3 trims on the name on the pullback day. First one at 208, next one at a stop of 192, next one at a stop of 180. Could have tried the reload, but this descending wedge is decent enough for us to think about it. But ATHM catching a little bit of a bid here off this trend line. We'll see if it goes. GNS trying to give up this ghost here. Is it going to be able to wick into this? I don't think so. I think we see this end up giving up. TIO trying to trade sideways. All it's going to take is a green candle through this 153, and I think that this actually could catch a bid. Invax trading right back down to that trend line. You can see the selling pressure coming into this red candle. Is this trend line going to be able to hold? It's a pretty resilient trend line. We do have a lower high set, but you know, testing up towards that 60 is that breakout level, so not a half bad look still. GNS, let's go see what the tape's looking like. 49 lots on 23s. Is it going to be able to hold? Probably not. ATHM got a couple more fills on that name, so a good start to the position. And Soundhound, I still think this 250 level, as long as it's above 250, I'm okay holding it. You know, kind of flattening out a little bit. Maybe it needs to curl and then give your positive break. So we'll be put in a position with this name where it's like, still wicking in. I think this green move could be a bullfight, so we could be looking at candle number 2, candle number 3 coming down into these 240s potentially. MSOS, absolute tear. Top end of the channel up here at 7s, I would say is a pretty decent look. GNS is going to give up the ghost right here. Just looks like it's going to give up the ghost. As expected, a little bit of selling pressure into this red move. Nothing we weren't expecting. Nothing we weren't expecting. GNS still trying to hold this. It doesn't look like it's going to be able to. 223 lots on 22s here. I think the out is going to be the continuation for the downside. I don't see any other ways that we can set this little bit of a trend line for a hold. Soundhound catching a nice little bid right there. Wicked as low as 52s, which I'd say 52s has a lot of good support. If we just mark this 52s right here. MSOS, have a day, bud. Have a day. GM, I didn't even notice. This went up and tested 34s. GNS still trying to hold these 30 or 23s. Soundhound. TIO giving the leg down. So let's take a look at TIO and see how solidified this move is to the downside. Do we want to think about trying to hold? Oh boy, here it's coming on in. Following the channel, just adjusting this channel like this. Is this something that we just want to get out of? A retest of these 27s could be an area that we think. But we do have TIO. We can think about maybe exiting, but looking at the hourly chart, this is number 3. I feel you have some decent support built in at 32s. I don't think we're in a paper hand. And looking at this hourly, maybe that trend line off this hourly could be a little bit set like this. So we're going to give this just a little bit of time. We can think about outs if it gets underneath of 25s. I'd be more willing to get out of GNS over TIO. TIO wicking into that hourly trend line. So it doesn't look very good, but I mean, off the hourly, I'd say that's a pretty decent trend line with your levels meeting in. Nice green move, gaps up, tries to fill the gap, gives that little stair step, trade sideways for a whole hour, boom, and then gives that move down. I'm not going to get wicked out off of this look yet. If it were to get underneath the 130s, that puts it on the map to maybe add some more. And ATHM coming more into that wick. Down into these 60s. Let's re-put this alert in at 67s. GNS still trying to wick into these 23s. It just looks like it's gonna give up. Humble opinion. TIO right into the bottom end of the range. You know, is it something like this? I wouldn't say it's something like that. I'd say more so is if this descending channel is gonna get discredited, it's gonna break out right here and test back out through those 150s. ATHM. We're gonna be looking to keep adding on this name and play this trend line. If it gives up these lows, we have these 50s here. TO. Oh, ATHM. Here we go. Let's go. Oops. ATHM. We're gonna go over and just get a small ad right here. We're gonna keep respecting it. Let's put this order in off 62s and see if this can fill. Right into these wick lows right here. And we're going to try 50s. GNS still trying to hold. Surprisingly, I can't even believe that I'm saying that. But it is. It is. Invax giving up the trend line. On a bear flag. Continuation of the downside. Does it need to come back into this 805 gap? Nice little sideways consolidation on ATSH. We can think about alerts off of this 4. And I'm not opposed to maybe trying it if it gets over top of that 4. GNS up to 25, so kind of a resilient hold, but giving you a tight channel sort of like this. Is that going to be something that's going to be able to fight through? Tough to say. Mullen is catching a little bit of a bid. Actually, a good look on the 15-minute. Let's put an alert for the middle of that move to the downside. We can think about this. Let's go cancel something. What do we got available? Let's get rid of Soundhound. I can give that a little bit of leeway to the downside. And let's go put this alert in right in front of those 50s. 58.50 is what we're going to be looking. What? I just took one off. How is that possible? Hmm. Fisker, we'll take that one off. ARDX, take that one off. Right in front of those 50s, we'll go 60s right here. Mullen, I think, is a pretty decent look. Maybe just a support line needs to be drawn right there. So maybe if it rolls over, that's the area that you'd be looking for. GNS still holding 25s. Let's look back at TIO. TIO giving up that secondary trend line here. We have an alert set off 30s. Take that trend line off. This is all we need, is this downtrend with levels to the downside. So that 25 looks like a really good level. And top end right here, 27s. So we'll look at this right here. Red engulfing on increased volume looks a little bit scary, I know. But I'm in a little bit different position with you guys, as I'm in off 122s. So we'll see if this can, this is kind of your long breakout area when the volume started going. Not surprised to see it come on back in. Warner Bros. Sitting a nice churn. Looks like a bull flag continuation setup. Tried to give that stair step, but didn't let it. ATHM, did we wick down in the 60? Nope. No 62 fills there. Amps, 2% on the day. Nice sideways consolidation. Actually, a little bit of volume increase. As it's, here's your 1, 2, 3. Gives you a move, sets the flat top. Now taking out that flat top right there. A good look right here. A good look. Doesn't need to test back down to this range first, though. TIO. Still didn't get alerted on TIO, but now we are. So now we can think about maybe an add here. But then we're going to be thinking about outs off 120s. Coming way in here to the level. Let's think about getting a reload here off these 27s. Trade back down in there. There's 28s. Mullen crossed back over. We can look at Mullen. We got some time with Mullen, I think. Mullen catching a little bit of a bid, though. That's still early. There's our fill on TIO. And we're going to try and respect 25s. Large increase of volume. But we should have got 27s there. So we got 27 halves. ATHM did not give us a fill off 62s, which is too bad. GNS, a nice candle and increased volume, so not a half bad look here. We got 25s. That's all we've pretty much done with the name. Mullen, let's re-put that alert in for, what did that 5-minute pullback to? Push back to that 15-minute. ATHM, nice candle, wick through that. Now every order in the money. GSN, a nice candle coming on in. Let's look back at TIO. We don't have an alert on the name, so did get a reload in there. So nice buying pressure coming in off that retest. That is what we wanted to see. Looking at the daily chart here, I do have a clean positive break. So if this wick low into the middle of this red can or green candle is the low and we get some continuation, I'm all for it. I'll be right back. I gotta take this call. And we're back. I would say that just because I got a 127 on this TO, I would say that as long as it's following this descending channel, I would say that it probably looks like a short. Uh, but from just where we got the outs, we're gonna give it a chance. I'm a lot more focused on ATHM, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. I'm a lot more focused on ATHM. If that keeps coming back in and wicking into this level, we're gonna keep trying it. We're gonna keep trying it, and even if it needs one more leg down, or even another leg after that, we're gonna keep trying it. But GNS, we have a reload on the name at 25s. I would expect that some resistance built into these 30s in some way, shape, or form. But a nice little bid that it's catching. Soundhound, kind of the same story. Given a stair step, doesn't need to pull back in here one more time. Looking at the movers for today, not really any volume on these names. I'm really upset. We talked about CI, and, I believe it was even a title name, like we were wanting to buy it. But I mean, we didn't take the chance off this flat top. It even came back and retested it down into those 4260s. I mean, that's just, that leads into the same thing I was saying earlier. Traders make thousands of calls. Just because they make a call that's right doesn't mean that it means anything. It don't mean nothing unless you put your money where your mouth is. Don't mean nothing unless you put your money where your mouth is. And that's what we're doing here with ATHM. I'm sure this is an extremely boring name to you guys, but to me, this is a very exciting name when you're talking about something that is testing a trend line like this that has this many points of contact. Yes, this setup can gap down. Boom. Hit hard. This setup, boom, gap down just like that, 9%. I get it. But this is a setup that I like to trade. If it's boring to you guys, put a ticker into the chat and I'll gladly go take a look at it. In terms of the title names, GNS, all we did was try these 125s. We don't know if this trend line is going to be something that can hold, but we're up to 40% of the position left from our original 120 out. We had 3 outs on the pullback day. Best out on the name was a 238. Gosh, I mean, this is the last bit of grace that we can give this name. If it breaks this channel, we think maybe we can have some outs into these 138s from our reloads, but uh, if it gets over top of that, maybe it has a chance. But I'm going to need to see this trend line continue to hold, so I do think this ends up coming back in the 125s. And TIO, I mean, just a descending channel right here. Is it going to be able to discredit it? A lot of volume came in on this candle, almost a little over 700K, but you do have some wick buying here. So if we look at the 5-minute, you can see the largest bit of that candle actually comes in at the end, which I'm sure there was still some people looking to punch out of the name. But coming right back into this support level, I think looked really good. You can see the descending channel look. So until it breaks out of this channel, I would say it is nothing worth taking a look at. But ATHM, this is my ideal sort of look right here. If it breaks down this trend line, we maybe give it a little bit of room to breathe. But after that, I mean, some of the other names, we haven't a word on this ASTS here at this 4, and it's tapping it. Is it going to be able to push higher? Nice sideways churn. We're still sitting at our original, 390 entry. I had one out at 14s. We were trying to get 17s, actually, believe it or not. So getting 1 penny off of that. We think that the setup, though, you can see if it is going to pan out, if this is the start of some sort of ascending trend line, give or take like that, maybe it needs to pull back in to these 80s, where you can play 80s, you can play the trend line, and then you have your backup here at 75s. I'm going to take this call. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, guys. So back to it. TIO. I mean, this is the look right here. I mean, we're playing support now. We have one. We got a reload off the gap at 42s after 3 pre-market prints. But coming right back in around that original entry of 122 from yesterday, is this going to be something that pans out? We're going to give it a chance. We'll probably run a hard stop underneath these 120s. Maybe give it the original 116 out from yesterday. But sitting on, let's go take a look. I don't even remember what the size is like. I think we're sitting back up to around 55 to 60% of the position. But other than that, I mean, I see we got 3 guys watching. It's gonna be kind of boring names. We're playing names like GNS, where we've been holding this against us for some time here from our original 120 entry. We're sitting on 40% of the position. We have one 125 fill here. That's it. So I mean, we're playing names that are weak right now because we have the golden entry in our eyes. So the only reason this is, we had a reload yesterday off GNS, full disclosure, 146. That reload put us up to around 35%. The reload here puts us up to 40%. So, yeah, you look at it, and if you're looking at it as today, I mean, it's a completely different scenario. Soundhound, we played the 150 level on this first candle yesterday. We were trying to get out at 70, but now if it gets to 70s, we like it. We just want to see it hold 250s. And then ATHM, we're playing this trend line. It's not on the title name, but we have 4 fills on the day, and we're on the bid at 62s. Looking at the daily, just a trend line play. We're playing the trend line. We've been super patient with this name. I shouldn't, that sounds weird. We've been extremely patient with this name, and today is the day. We tried getting entries on it yesterday off this neckline. We can go take a look back at that off the 15-minute. Here's your line in the sand. At the beginning, we are on the bid off 25s. Gets as low as 36s. Never came in. We went to work, and then we got blessed by this trend line. Our first fill coming in at 76, second fill off 80s, then we got 75s, and like I said, we have 3 fills on the name. We're on the bid at 62s playing this trend line. So I mean, that's what I got for you guys today. It's all boring names. GNS, we're actually excited to just get out of this name. We're tired of it. But if it does pan out, we're gonna get a break of this wedge pattern. TIO, coming back on in. Good fills on the name. My best fills a 175. We had a 169 also in the pre-market, and we had an out. If we go to the 5-minute, you can see our out a little bit better. First wick catches a bid. We just put our out underneath 164, so that was our 3rd trim on the name. Reloaded the gap for 142. I don't remember the exact size percentage-wise, but we are going to be playing this level right here, kind of discrediting any type of trend line. There's your trend line break as it gives out that flat bottom here at 140s. So if it comes on in further into these 125s, we'll try it. We have an intraday here at 124, but out probably at 117, 116, give or take. Other than that, NVAX, giving up the trend line. It was a resilient trend line, held good off the open, coming right back in. I would say 805 gap is going to be of interest. We have 390 entry on Space Mobile. We have an alert off 4. Just want to get our eyes on it if it breaks at 4. ATHM, Mullen. We do have an alert on Mullen. Trading in right around this range. Mullen actually is not a half bad look. I know that's going to be like, dude, Mullen? Really? Seriously? I actually am not opposed of trying some sort of long. If this gets back into these highs, we're on pullback candle number 1. The green move, the volume increase on this candle when it exceeds this, passes the test. 1, 2, gap up, fills the gap, catches a bid. So we'll see. We'll see. Warner Bros. I think this is a good swing trade to keep your eyes on. Reclaim positive. Might need to pull back to the trend line or the top of the downtrend still, but we like that name. What else do we got? PMW trying to break this sort of downtrend. We don't have this down here. Looking back, we could have. We definitely could have. GNS, we just want to see this close above 130s. If it doesn't, then I just don't know how much faith I have in this name. Humble opinion. But Mullen coming on back in on pullback candle number 2. How is this going to act here at this 57.5? Let's put that alert in and then move it up just a little bit right there. Looks like it is going to come back in. If this candle has decreasing volume, not against trying it. Back to TIO though. We got to be ready for a flush here on TIO. Looks like we are going to get continuation downside. Let's take a look back at this. EBITDA per share of 403. That seems freaking ridiculous. Profit after tax. Profit after tax per share attributed for the first half of 23 is 162 and outstanding 52 cents a share. I mean, they put up a monstrous quarter. Uh, I would expect some type of buying pressure off of this, but I mean, as long as it's following this descending channel, it's like, oh boy, this just looks like we're going to get a continuation to the downside here. CGC, potential pullback in the 56 might be something, but the gap up continuation move right there is juicy. TIO trying to hold these 27s. Is it going to be able to discredit this channel? I would say it got some good wick top support and body candle support in front of these, right off these 25s. Looks like everything's kind of coming on in, catching some resistance. TIO catching a little bit of a bid on some increased volume right here. We have 11 minutes left and already 122K of volume. How much selling pressure comes into the middle of this red move? Mullen crossing over. Let's take a look over at Mullen. We can think about something here, but first, before we do that, let's switch back over the TIO and just put an alert in off this 127, just in case that wants to come back on in. Now let's look over at Mullen. Mullen, wicking into that level right there. You know, I know this isn't popular, but let's maybe think about a Neo or a Mullen trade here. We look at the daily, and you can see hovering down around here in this oversold, but you can see uh, if it's going to flat bottom break, we can look at these outs underneath 55s as a reasonable out. But if this did catch a bid, I wouldn't be surprised to see a retest of this flat bottom. It tested it once, twice. If it builds that U, I wouldn't be surprised. So looking at risk reward, looking at 50% for a risk of down the 55 cents we said. There's 55.4%. So we're looking at what is that? 11. That's a 12 to 1 risk reward on the name. Actually, a little bit was like a 12.5 risk reward on the name. ATHM. Is this trend line going to be able to hold? We still have orders off for those 62s. Looking for this to get discredited. I'm sure you have some sort of descending channel type of build right here. You can see it. But the uptrend is what we're looking for. Boom, break this downtrend and have some good entries for the move. GNS still holding like a glove. Can't even believe it's still holding. Soundtown, we talked about it, looking for a retest back down towards these 50s. You can see the descending channel build. TIO still holding the bid. And a nice wick. So where we are looking for that, probably could have had an order. So if this wants to come back on in, let's reset this alert in right here. And if that wants to come on in, we're gonna think about an entry here. It has the decreasing volume look, so candle break 500K. We're looking for the same buying pressure to come into this green move that came in before. But you can see there is some buying pressure here, so we can think about averaging this in down towards the trend line. Where you're out, you have a clean out underneath these 55s. GNS still trying to hold this level. Potential stair step. So over top of 130 actually could be something there. You don't have a confirmed high or low, so even if it comes back into 25s and holds, potentially something is there. ATHM, can we get this 62 fill? Mullen crossing over. Let's go take a look. Keeping an eye on GNS and right back into these 60s. 7 minutes left. Let's see how low we can get this. Let's go see what the tape is looking like here. Let's just get a first, oh boy, wicking down towards that level again. Let's start putting orders. We're going to put orders start at 57.60. And we're just going to use some small size on this. So we'll start with, yeah, right about that. And we'll go 57.60 and see if we can start getting an entry onto this. Well, we're going to put that alert right in front of that. TIO, putting a nice green engulfing candle in on a bit of increased volume. I like the long here. I like the long. I think it looks good. Uh, Not from a trend line perspective, but just this support and based off the earnings that I'm looking at the daily, uh, it's leaving that wick. If we just clear everything, we'll re-put that in. It's leaving that wick right into the middle of this green move right here. So I mean, if this wanted to be something that left a nice wick and closed, let's say 40s, I think it's a reasonable long for continuation. But is it going to get a continued move? Test it up to this flat top. So those are outs that we're going to be having up towards this flat top here. But if it wants to make a run for the gap, I mean, what better time than when you're getting volume like this and you're looking at the earnings report, monstrous numbers quarter over quarter or year over year. When you're talking about 11 million up to 977 million, they're gap positive, 18 cents. I don't know. Maybe there is just more about the company that I should look into. And by no means do we have our full size back on the position, but ATHM, are we going to get some more action down closer to this trend line? I like it down here. It looks like it's going to give me the move down here. 62s, we're going to be looking for an ad, and honestly, we could see a flush from that point, but yeah, I like the look. I like the look. I like this ATHM, and that is what we're going to be looking for. Looking at oil, oil. Planet, look at the planet on a absolute rip city. Just ripping higher. I don't have volume on this OTC, but it is ripping higher. GNS, and let's take a look back at that Mullen. Mullen turned into a green candle. We tried taking this live trade here for you guys, just not getting the fill. Not yet. We have 3 minutes left in this candle, so let's see it trade back in, and then see this next candle start giving us the fill. Somebody on this podcast I was watching was like, "Oh, I hammered the short off 34s." Oh boy, that's what I like to hear. Make them feel nice and comfy. Make them feel nice and comfy when this GM pushes over top of this 34. You know, we've talked about it. We said actually 34.20 over top of these wicks. You know, if it needs to come back in, great. We're going to be looking to add more GM. But like the look, like the setup. Nice churn off those 32 ads down there. It's nice when you are adding on the wick lows. Adding wick lows is fantastic because you're in before the golden entry actually. You know, you can call, I don't know what better term there is than a golden entry, but I'd say your golden entry on this is probably when this takes out 34s or maybe the retest of like 32 halves. GNS coming on back in. Are these 25s going to be able to hold? That's all we need to see. Now that we have these wicks right here, we got the neckline build. Uh, this red move is extended, so maybe we go to a 30-minute chart and you can see 4 red candles, 1, 2. You can see it giving that curl. If this is going to break, our out is going to be 120s. So we're not going to give this down to the 113 gap. So holding it maybe back in more than we could have, but we think this trend line could be something. 1, 2, 3, rejecting the bottoms a couple times before it goes down. There's your final rejection. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Set a double bottom. See if it can break this wedge. That's what we're looking for. ATHM wicking into those 60s. Wicking into those 60s. That's too bad. The way that this is setting up, I wouldn't be surprised to see this catch a bid back into the 29s. I like this setup, and we got a few fills on the name. That's how we're sitting as of right now. '67s would have been good ads. Even if the price eventually breaks down below that, I would have been okay with 67 ads. Let's look at TO, make sure this isn't wicking. A little bit of a wick. Uh, But still, I'd expect if this candle closes like it is, I'd expect some buying pressure off those 30s. And let's see if it can discredit that and catch a bid through the top of these wicks. Invex, you know, it's possible that this trend line does have some leeway. GNS right back into 25s here. So this is the fill that we had for the name today. What happened to our volume? No wonder why I don't have any volume. Our volume, what keeps happening to these indicators? That's absolutely insanity. But end phase catching a nice bid. We were looking at that neckline. We briefly went over there and looked at that neckline. I would say end phase is a long ad. My humble opinion. I think end phase is a long-term ad. We're at the open of the next candle. Open flat. I like the volume increase, kind of discrediting the bear flag, but is it going to be able to hold? So we have to open of the next candle, trying the trade down. How do we act down here in the middle of this green move with the increased volume? Giving a slight gap down, coiling down. Does it need to come back down into these low 60s? That's what we're looking for here. DocuSign, a nice churn to the upside. Still just holding along. Didn't see any reason to sell it when it was given this negative break. But into the earnings, a nice. We got the earnings next week on the 7th. Mullen, we got to keep an eye on this candle for Mullen. A nice setup here on Mullen. I got to give it credit where it's due. It has a decent little channel. Trying to hold this level. Maybe it needs to pull back in there one more time. You could say, well, it's setting lower highs each time. Yes, I agree. But all it would take is for it to discredit that and catch a bid. And before you know it, this flat top, which, tests the flat bottom break here, boom. One test on the downside, test, test, test. Wouldn't be surprised to see 67. So even if you were looking at just outs up to 67, 16% is a reasonable trade. GNS, we're going to move this alert up on GNS to those 23s. TIO, trying to be a green candle. BAC, let's take a look at BAC. This ZI catching a bid here. Nice sideways action. All it would take is this 1850 break. GNS down into these 24s. Clear out everything. Get a clean chart for you guys. Mullen, candle number 3. Are we going to get the fill here? We're in off these 60s is our fill. Let's see if we can get this fill here. TIO, let's look back at TIO. Soundhound back into these 50s. Still following the channel. Invex giving up that next trend line. How does 805 act as for the gap? And looking at the daily levels here, that is kind of the last grain of salt. So maybe we think about taking it out off of this 790 breakdown. GNS crossing over. Go take a look. 23s incoming. We got to think about this giving up the ghost right here. So we are officially going to go put this stop in for GNS. We'll give it 19s. So we'll take a hit on GNS of 19s print, but we're not looking to hold it any lower than 19s. That is the original entry. It's got the gap here at 13s that can hold, but I think we're done with this name if it stops us out there. So 22's coming inbound, given that frowny face, red engulfing, increased volume already coming on in. Let's see where that wick low comes in at. Doesn't quite fill us. GNS trying to wick into that level 22's. Market is tanking apparently. PWM, let's take a look at the 15. Trading the range. GNS catching a nice wick into those lows. So we do like that. We do like that. It's holding that level for now. And now if it can break over top of 130s, it looks pretty good. So let's just go put an alert off 130s. Warner Brothers giving a nice red engulfing candle below that 15. So retesting the highs from yesterday. Does it start wicking into this level? Tough to say. Soundhound, looks like we are going to be following this sort of descending channel, but I do like the ad here off 248s. Let's take a look at the top volume for the day. How about that? We haven't done that yet. Palantir, wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Maybe down here at 10. Nikola, looks like a flat bottom break. Don't look as dumb of an out now at 122. But I mean, I would say this is going to. This looks like a short all day. Higher, lower highs all the way through all the last 5 days. Testing this flat bottom. We'll see how this acts down here at 90. Kind of the same look on Neo. Lower highs all the ways throughout this move, but it does have some. I would expect profit taking off that wick. By humble opinion. ATHM just gave us a fill off 28.62. Did we get down the 50s? We do have an order off 50s. No fill off 50s, but wicking into that trend line. Wicking into the trend line for now. Is it going to be able to be something that catches a bid? We're going to find out. GNS, nice volume increase, discrediting. If this is something that can take out 30s, this could get going. I don't know if it would get going today, but I would be looking for a test up these 39s where we'll probably take that reload off 125s and just punch out of it. And if it comes back into 27s, we can reload it again. If it wants to catch a bid and go higher, so be it. We will start printing on the name again, hopefully. What were we gonna take a look at? So getting a fill off of that ATHM, very happy with that. We were patient for it, and that's the key is be patient with it. TIO, trying to hold in there. Go back to the top movers of the day. Min. I mean, the volume's trying to pick up. Has a flat top here. I don't think we're gonna try it. Volume's too light. This has washout top written all over it. Chegg. I like the retest of this high right here. I'd say 168 gap looks a little bit better. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about forcing any longs here. Let's see if we got that fill on Mullen. Did we? I didn't hear that alert go off, so I don't think we did. Trying to get a fill here though on Mullen. I'm not opposed to it. I know you guys are probably like, dude, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. Let's look at the top losers. Top losers. The go-to. We had an alert off that today. If this wants to come all the ways back in, maybe I have to go take a look at the report. But I'm not opposed. Kind of gives that head and shoulders type of look. But if you caught a bid, I'd say this 450 level is a level that I would say is not a half bad look. TMC getting close to that trend line. Just super light volume on the name. Actually 800K, it's not bad. Into some support levels. Be looking at that as some sort of retracement. ATHM took a last fill there, and we're still on the bid at 50. So I mean, if this wants to come on in the 50s, we are there. Let's take a look back at TIO. Open to the next candle. Is this going to be something that catches a bid? Looking at the 30-minute though, this is candle number 3. Here's your red move. Increased volume, kind of decreases a little bit here, but discredited a little bit on the increased volume. So how does this 30 minutes left, how does this act? If it gets over 130s, I would be surprised if this volume didn't discredit the move. Warner Brothers wicking into that high, so good look right there. I would say even though it's below your, you look at the 15, it looks like a short. Probably has some sort of descending channel, but I would say if it can hold these 13s, just trade sideways. That's a good look. Docs. Mullen crossing over. Hold on. Are we going to get a fill on Mullen here? Oh boy. Very, very close. Very close. Let's put this red line right where our order's at. Off 60s. I like the decreasing volume. Passes the test. Very, very, very close right there. Waiting for that. Oh, come on. Don't tell me we got 2/200th of a penny from that fill. Let's just go over and take a look at that. See if we got the fill there. Wowzers. 200th. We're not talking about 2 pennies. 200th of a penny from that fill. I was fully mentally prepared to get the fill there. This better come back in and give me that fill. 200th. We're not even playing the whole half level, which is the previous high. You gotta be kidding me. And even if we got the fill, I'd expect the price to come down some. But, I mean, if it ripped from here, I'm just gonna call it a day. And no, we are not gonna increase that fill, that order. No, 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 no. GNS getting to the low 24s. TIO giving the curl. Testing over top or to that neckline, having to trade down a little bit. Probably has some sort of ascending channel that tried breaking and just traded back inside of it. And that should gave us a fill right there. Yes, sir. We got the fill. Let's go try and get one more fill here. We're gonna try and get one more fill here. I think we could just go wick low. But right at our entry here, brand new position. GNS acting like it wants to give up the ghost. Let's see if that same buying pressure can buy it back up. TIO giving the look like, hey, gonna keep following this descending channel. But the headset is low battery, guys. I see we had a guy here. Andy dropped a like. How you doing, brother? You got anything you want me to take a look at? If I were to give you the rundown right now, it would be a lot of nonsense probably. So I'll just skip that. I would say if I was gonna hold any weight to anything, we've been playing this ATHM. We got 4 fills on the name, but we're playing this trend line. Here's your daily: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Give or take 18 points of contact off this trend line. And we are playing it today. So if it wants to trade down, my out's going to be underneath the wick. I might end up giving it to 28, so running a deeper stop. Not a orthodox type of trading style, I'm sure. But that's how we're doing this name. Uh, GNS, we have a stop loss for the entirety of the position. From the original position, a 120 break. We even had some 124s on this pullback. Best out on the names at 38. We have 40% of the position left. We had one reload, a 5% reload off 46 yesterday. And we had a 5% reload today off of 25s. And our out is at 119 underneath the original entry. But honestly, I probably end up getting wicked out, and it could potentially still catch a bid. So we'll see. TIO's a new position from yesterday. Average cost around 120, 122s. We were trying this sort of breakout level. Got a fill off of 120s was the best fill. We had outs underneath 116. It held. We printed it. I think it was 6 or 7 fills to the upside. We had 2 fills in the pre-market, 169 and 175. We thought about 80s, but the flat top at 170 here was kind of the area that we were looking for a breakout level. Well, now we got this descending channel. We reloaded some off the 142 gap. Well, we're eating that right now as we speak. But then we also got a 127 fill as it was approaching this wick top right here. We had it marked like this, and we said, hey, let's try it. And this is the price that's trying to hold. So we'll see how that ends up going moving forward. Other than that, we just took a fill on Mullen, and we're looking to get some more actually. Wick down into that level. 20s is the low. But I am thinking about getting an order off of this. This trend line can probably be played with a little bit, and the top end of the channel can probably be played with a little bit. But if this wants to keep stair stepping, even if you're looking at it as a trade, looking at 4 to 5% upside, so not terrible. And then the last title name, actually there's 2. We got Soundtown. I'm looking for 52s to 48 gap right here. Here's your 48 gap. We got it marked. That is the one spot we'd think about adding this name probably. But Soundtown, the bigger picture is your daily, where you got a nice green move. If this is your pull for a bull flag, we're looking for 1, 2, 3 pullback candles, and also holding around this level, and then for a takeout and a take of the high. So that's what we see there. So looking back at TIO, holding 130s. I don't know. Just clearing out the entirety of the chart. We're just looking for buyers to come back in. The same buyers that were here yesterday in this green move. If that can happen, we think that this can close this daily candle with a wick. And I'd like to see it close with a green candle. But you can see it just came down in the 128s and got bought up right up to those 30s again. So we want to see those buyers keep holding that green candle right there. Other than that, oil. I think oil uh, is a strong name, but the big look for oil is that your weekly chart, you got a nice bull flag, 1, 2, 3. We're looking for a red weekly candle to come into these previous highs right here. A lot of week left, so maybe it just needs to trade sideways. If next week's oil candle gets anywhere in the 70s, we're punching it. You're not even here no more. It's fine. I'm not worried about it. We're probably getting close to the end of the day here anyways. But looking at Mullen, we are sitting a little bit in the money, nothing to brag about. And we could have easily had another fill. So we only have a small fill on Mullen here, but playing it for a trend line sort of play. And when you take out this high, boom, that volume increase. We're looking for the same buyers in this green candle to continue coming in on this pullback. So that's what we're looking for with Mullen. But other than that, that's all I got for you. CrowdStrike, notable move for us today. Nice earnings report. Increased guidance from what I see, and I didn't look too much through it. But ATHM, we are trying to get the golden entry. I mean the platinum entry off this trend line. If it starts working for us, first out's in the 31s, next out's maybe in the 31 halves, but we're really looking for 33s to 34s. You got the gap fill here at 34.25, and then the top end, flat top 38s. Top end of our ascending channel is up at 50s. So if we get that move, you're gonna be hearing me date back to this trend line quite often. But if we end up getting stopped out, we executed our plan, and that's how we're going with it. So we will see how it plays out. Invax looks like it did fill this 805 gap. The low of the day is 806, so we can watch this live, and then we're gonna call it for today. But we're at the point where this trend line giving up. Is this 805 gap gonna get any love? We can think about outs underneath of this wick, which is a 790. If we wanted to give it a few pennies, we can give that to the lowest of 785. But if that triggers, we're expecting some influx of selling pressure. And we can think about reloading off of this 760 and maybe off of the trend line that we bought originally. So this trade is going to stay green unless it gets a massive gap down. But if this comes back in down towards, here's your neckline that we marked at 160s or 760s. The body of the candles is around the 740. So we're going to play this accordingly. First entry, second entry, third entry off the trend line. Maybe one last one off 7, but then we're putting outs underneath 690. That's everything. I said I wasn't going to give the rundown. I did anyways. I can't help myself. If Drift was here, he'd probably be laughing. I even said I wasn't going to give the rundown, and I just gave a quick rundown there. AMPS, I'd say, needs a little bit of time, but this red candle, selling pressure coming in the middle of it, given the look like, hey, if this stair steps down here at 610 is an area that we were going to be adding to this position. We have small size on it. But other than that, we're looking for some of these names to actually sell off where we're interested in the long. And BAC is probably going to be one of those names. If it comes back into these low 28s, we are going to be buying BAC, playing this trend line. GM down to 32s. If GM comes on in back to 32s, wick pressure into 34s today. So you could say that's a good move in itself, but if it did kind of want to roll over, I would say this is a monster trend line on GM that we're going to be playing. DFS gave up 90s. Gap fill is still at 88.70 and another gap at 87.20. We'll probably be playing both of those. ASTS, we're looking for this to probably have to pull back into the 80s at the lowest. We're going to be trying this gap, and then we'll be putting some outs underneath 60s. Geo, Geo, a nice move yesterday right into the downtrend though. So if it pulls back into 710, we said that we didn't think it could close above 710. Well, it did, and a nice green candle. Now if it holds as support, 7 is a pretty decent level. That has continued to hold, but continued lower highs. BTI, you can see our fills. I mean, we had multiple fills. We had fills over here. We had fills over here. This is kind of just a long name. There are some risks that are involved with this, but I like the potential for this name. We'll see where it goes. Devon's our oil play. You can see it's continuing to churn sideways. If it wants to take out 51s, we think the upside looks great. But other than that, yeah, that's everything. Look back at TIO before we head out, sitting at 28. Uh, Is it going to be able to hold? Given a flat bottom look, so actually the look looks like we're going to get a red candle through. Our out is going to be 16s on the name. So we'll see if this can end up holding. I don't think that it's going to be able to. So thought we were going to have a lot more action with this name today. You know, if it would have built this U shape and discredited this channel, it was going to do it here as a 150 hold. But giving up the trend line from yesterday is the big look. Boom. Now setting up another leg down as we speak. You have the increased volume on the way down. A little bit of wicked buying pressure, but that's not anything that can't be taken out. But the big battle is how is it going to act when we test this sort of flat top here at 125s, and then you got your wick tops here, also right around that 125, 126 area. So a leg down. I still think that there is potential with this name, and we think it's going to be hard for GNS. We are going to take a hit on the position, but overall, the position that we have from this 120 entry, going to be hard for this one to turn red on us. But you never know. Invax, let's see if it filled that 805, and sure did. Sure did fill that 805. So the gap is filled. The battle is taking place. Soundhound right at this. Looks like it did fill those 48s. Didn't quite get down to the gap, but not a half bad look on the bottom end of this channel. If this just holds this level, all it would take is a channel break, and before you know it, we're testing back up to this flat top, and we're really bullish on the name. But for all I know, it's probably not going to work out. But just trying to use risk reward trading, try to get the entries, try to get some trims, try to reload the positions. That's the name of the game for me at least. Maybe not what works for you, but it's what works for me. TIO crossing over those 128s. Let's take a look. 127s looking like flat bottom break. Let's re-put that alert in underneath 23s. Underneath 123s. Wicking into that 127 level for now. Could be something. But that is that. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate the couple likes there at the tail end. Always appreciate when people support the channel. It's very difficult to be a new YouTuber, new live streamer. But I did see we got our 100th sub today, so I really appreciate whoever was that number 100. Means a lot. We were sitting at 99 for 3 days. But finally getting that number 100. No, if we get up around that 400, 500, you'll be seeing me start investing a little bit of capital into potentially a face cam, potentially another monitor, and potentially a whole new computer in general. So that is some forward looking for the channel. If you guys like what you see, I am willing to invest the capital into a little bit better setup, make it better for you guys, maybe even get the trading transparent onto the screen, where if I took a fill right here, you'd see me punch in on the screen. I feel that's something that I really like watching myself. You know, obviously me, I'm going to tell you, if I tell you I do something, I do it. I'm not blowing smoke. But I know some people that would be in my position. I don't know if I didn't know them personally, I don't know if I would believe what they did either. So I could see that as something that, you know, seems a little bit iffy with the channel, but I try to be as transparent as I can. We didn't talk too much about the investing side of things today. You know, I look at investing and trading as two completely different things. And in my opinion, they're completely different. And another thing we talked about is, just because you call something out, traders, they call out millions of things every single day. So I don't look at any weight. Like PWM is the example I'd use, where we've been talking about this gap for months, for like a month since it gave out this flat bottom. We said, hey, okay, let's see it come down to this gap, and we're not in it. But it don't mean anything unless you actually take the trade. If you don't put your money where your mouth is, it doesn't mean anything. So I mean, when you guys are out there watching other people, and you got somebody that's talking himself up because he had a monstrous call out, and he goes, dang, if I would have took that, I would have made a lot of money. Uh, that's where you get yourself in trouble. Just because something works once doesn't mean that's going to work the next time. And that next time, you might have a lot more size than that first time you were going to do it, and you might end up losing your butt. So you just always got to be careful with the people that you're putting your time into, and just the advice that some people throw out advice and just different types of call outs, and they're not even putting their own capital into it. So I mean, just keep that in mind, guys. But uh, we'll take a quick rundown of just GNS. We got to stop put in on GNS. We take a small hit, but overall, we think that it stays as a green trade for us. So just one fill on GNS today at 25. So we'll take 6 penny hit, or 6 penny hit if that stop executes. And looking back at TIO, uh, we have the support range right around here. This is right around where we were taking fills originally. So if that stops out, we had some good outs all the ways to the upside. So nothing to be down about from today. Not like yesterday with the C and GC call. I mean, you can see the trend line that we were trying to play down here. Almost would have had the lows. And it's a damn shame. On the live stream and everything, we were getting ready to set up. We had an alert right underneath this wick low. We were going to try it here, and then the trend line, the gap, and the trend line. And talk about missing a monstrous move where all we had marked on the chart. Now, I'm not saying this that uh, as something, but all we had marked on the chart was that gap. And look at what the wick top is today. You think we would have fucking had some sells off of that? Bet your sweet bottom we would have, and we'd still be holding a piece of it too. We wouldn't have cut everything off of that. We'd still be holding a piece of this because this move, getting a fresh positive break on this volume increase, I wouldn't be surprised to see CNG or CGC make a pump up to 2. I would not count it out. But that's gonna call it for the day. Appreciate everyone who tuned in, and we'll see you on the live stream tomorrow. Peace.